We've got an early episode of That's What G Said this week, Monday, August the 17th, 2020. We've got an NBA playoff preview for you. That's What G Said. We're going to talk a little bit about Hard Knocks, episode 1, that aired last week on Tuesday, that covered the Chargers and the Rams. We're going to give you a full recap of that episode, and then we're going to talk some Monday and Tuesday racing. Dave Handeland joins us to talk about Canterbury for Monday, and for Tuesday we talk about those pick fives there. So Monday pick 5, Tuesday pick 5 with Dave, and then we close things out with the old wrestling rewatch, SummerSlam 1989. Andrew Champagne and Darin Zoccali join. It's Hulk Hogan and Brutus the Barber Beefcake in the main event against the Macho King, I guess he's not quite the king yet. He's still the Macho Man, and Zeus with Sensational Sherry. Yes, Zeus, the same Zeus from No Holds Barred. So we had a lot of fun talking about that. Before we get into the NBA playoff preview, a couple quick things to discuss. Our friends over at Stable Duel, the horse racing contest app, you can download Stable Duel on your phones, your iPads, all the app stores. They have tweaked some of the contests now, the formats for some of them, because there are more people playing. There are more contests now to play. So there are still some of the regular contests that pay out to a bunch of different positions all the way down. So you can get involved for $5, and they'll pay out sometimes down to the top 30, 40, 50, depending on how many people are in a contest. But now they have some of these more heavily weighted towards the top contests, which are really fun. They've got winner-take-alls, and they've got top 10 payout contests too. So if you're in the top 10, you're going to get a little bit more, and if you win, you're definitely going to be getting a little bit more. So continue to watch Stable Duel for new development. If you keep hearing us talk about it, and you've never played, now is a great time to take a chance and check out when they have their contests up and their new game. So go download the app, Stable Duel. If you have any questions at all, let me know. It has been a very good week or so for the Dodgers and really for the Yankees. Quickly, these two teams are right where everybody thought they would be, and after, it's funny, we've talked about the Dodgers a few times now, and it felt like it was a very slow, sort of disappointing start for them, and all of a sudden they're up at 16-7, and they've got the best record in the National League. They're 2 games up on the Rockies, and after a 3-game losing streak now, the Dodgers have a better record than the Cubs, who got off to a really good start. They're still 3.5 games up in the division. They're 13-6, and that's going to be a weird division the way things play out with St. Louis, who's only played 8 games now, and they're having to make up with all these double headers, so it's going to be a difficult situation for them. The Cubs have put themselves in a great spot, but the 5 straight wins for the Dodgers, and they are just scoring runs all over. Cody Bellinger starting to heat up a little bit. We got a great pitching outing from Kershaw. Mookie Betts has just been on a tear, and the lineup top to bottom, it's just different guys every day. Corey Seager, Pollock, Taylor, Muncy's struggling, but he's jumping up here and there with big hits. Rios has come through with some big opportunities, and they're playing as they were projected to. They have a plus 60 run differential now. 7-3 in the last 10. They've won 5 in a row. They're actually 10-2 on the road, which is sort of interesting because now there's no fans. You're obviously traveling. You're not traveling a whole ton, but without the opposing crowd, it's a totally different dynamic. And so that has not seemed to the travel, and playing on the road has not bothered the Dodgers one bit. And that plus 60 run differential, just to give you an idea, the second best team in the league as far as run differential is concerned is the Yankees, and they have a plus 35. So the Dodgers are just crushing teams, and when they're losing, they're barely losing. And you can look back at their 7 losses, and you know what? They probably shouldn't have lost like 5 of them. They were games where they were just kind of playing a little lazy, a little small mistake here or there, never really outplayed, didn't hit timely, a bad pitch or two. It's starting to come together very nicely now for the Dodgers. So in the National League right now, the The Dodgers are up top the West, 16-7. The Rockies are right behind them at 13-8, and the D-backs are at 11-11. They're at 500 now. After the Padres, but they had a good start, but they've lost 5 games in a row, so they dropped below 500. In the Central, the Cubbies are up at 13-6. They're at the top of the division. The Cardinals are 4-4. They're starting to make up those games. The Brewers are at 500. They're 10-10. The Reds trying to climb over that 500. They're at 9-11. And the Pirates are one of the worst teams in the league. They only have 4 wins. They are 4-14. I mean, they have the lowest win total in the league, and by every metric, they are one of the, if not the worst team in the league. The National League East, competitive as we would assume, just not who we would have thought was up front. Even after a couple losses, the Marlins are still up top the division. They are 9-6. They're tied with the Braves, who are 13-10. Phillies are 8-9, a couple games behind them. The Nationals are 8-11, and the Mets are 9-14. They are 4 games out of the division lead there in the National League East. Over in the American League, yet those Yankees, they've won 5 in a row now too. They are starting to heat up and play some good baseball, and they have the second best run differential and tied for the best run differential in the American League. We've got a couple good-looking teams now in the American League. Tampa's starting to come together and play some good ball. These teams are all beating up on the Red Sox, who look dreadful. The Red Sox are 6-16. They have a -42 run differential. They are abysmal. They have a horrendous pitching staff, and their lineup that's always been good and steady has really struggled. And the Orioles, they're playing good ball still too. They're 12-9, and I'd love to see the Orioles be able to fight around for one of those playoff spots. In the AL Central, the Twins are 14-8, the Indians are 13-9, and the White Sox are 11-11. So the Tigers, after that hot start, they've lost 5 in a row now, and the Royals are a few games under 500. So starting to take shape as we assumed it would in the Central now, with the Twins, the Indians, and the White Sox, the 3 better teams there. And the Astros are playing some good ball. They've actually now won 4 in a row. They're above 500. They're 11-10. Problem is the team they're chasing in the division, the Athletics, they've won 4 in a row. They're 16-6, and they're one of the best teams in baseball. So the Astros, they've struggled. Can they sustain it? They don't have a ton of pitching, but they're getting good performances from some of their young arms. The Rangers are 10-10, and the Angels and the Mariners. The Angels have lost 4 in a row. The Mariners have lost 5 in a row. So your season now, you're 7-15 and 7-16. You're in some trouble right now. You're already 5 games out of a playoff spot. Baseball, we will continue to monitor everything that goes on. It's just a different baseball season this year because everything really does matter. Every 2 or 3 games are so much different than a normal year where, those 2 or 3 games wouldn't really matter. NBA playoffs time. Really got to applaud the NBA with what they did with the bubble, with the play-in tournament, the restart, everything, with the teams battling to get into that 8th spot. It was exciting. We all loved watching Lillard and how incredible he was over the last couple weeks. The Suns were really fun to watch. Ja Morant in that play-in game on Saturday. Ja and the Grizzlies, they battled. I really thought they were going to win that first game, and then I thought Portland would come back and beat them on Sunday. But they just, down the stretch, there were a couple big turnovers from Ja, and McCollum and Carmelo were able to. They did a great job trying to get the ball out of Lillard's hands. They wanted to force others on the Blazers to beat them, and they did. Whether it was McCollum, Nurkic, Melo hit a big shot or 2, even Trent, who struggled, he hit a big 3 when they needed him. So timely shot making for Portland, and they were able to get in. We're going to start on the East first. We're going to go through the playoff matchups with the number 1 versus the number 8 Bucks versus the Magic. We got a Bucks team who didn't look great in the bubble. They struggled a little bit, and a lot of times because it's difficult, right? They're 56-17. They were 3-5 in the bubble. They were 4-0 against Orlando this year. They didn't really have anything to play for. Once they were able to clinch that number 1 seed, what are the Bucks playing for? Just getting back into shape. These wins don't matter. If there's a 50-50 ball, are you going to go for it every time and worry, about maybe risking an injury? It was a difficult spot for some teams that, I think the Lakers and for the Bucks in particular, because You get to the point where you secure everything, and now the most important thing is staying healthy. You don't want to lose one of your key contributors. So if Orlando won a game or two, that would be a win. It really would. What hurt Orlando now, 33-40 overall. They're 3-5. They were 3-5 in the bubble. They have the number 23 offensive rating, the number 11 defensive rating. But with no Jonathan Isaac at the torn ACL, that's a huge miss. He was someone they were going to have to put on Giannis for large periods of time, and they just don't have the personnel and the bodies to throw at Giannis anymore. The way you could beat the Bucks is if you hit the three and you shoot the three at a large clip, and the Magic were just 25th in the league in three-point percentage at 34.3%. It doesn't feel like the matchup is fit for them to capitalize on one of the Bucks' weaknesses. Remember how good the Bucks were before the bubble? I don't know if they're as good as some of the numbers would have indicated, but they're a better team than they've looked in these few weeks. What I didn't like is what Giannis did. He got suspended for headbutting Mo Wagner from the Wizards in a totally meaningless game. So if a guy like that can get under your skin and force you to headbutt him to where he got suspended for the final game of the bubble, and honestly, he should have gotten suspended for one or two of these playoff games. He went right up and headbutted the guy. If that would have been a lot of other players, I think they would have gotten suspended multiple games. But, he's your MVP, and you don't want him to be missing big games. I didn't like it. We've seen him go through a playoff grind, but is there something else going on that's going to rattle him, maybe? I mean, this is the team that gave up some of the historical three-point attempted per game and made three-pointers per game. The Bucks will they'll let you shoot the three, and they will not let you get easy buckets down low, and they will force you to hit the three. They were league leading in defensive efficiency before the bubble. During the bubble, they were just top 8. One thing about them in a close game, in a close matchup, which I don't think they're going to get here, they're bottom 5 in free throw percentage at 74.2%. And that's the key with Giannis after they get through this. They're the number 1 defensive rating overall, number 8 offensive rating, first in points per game. But Giannis is only a 30% three-point shooter, and he only shoots 63% from the free throw line. If he's missing free throws and he's missing threes, and you have the type of defense that can block the paint and make it difficult on him, that's how you beat the Bucks. It's just Orlando doesn't have that. They can't shoot the three well enough, and they don't have a defensive stoppers in the paint to make it difficult on him. We're going to be looking at Vucevic, Nikola Vucevic, Gordon, Fournier, Fultz, Terrence Ross, DJ Augustine, James Ennis. That's going to be the bulk of the minutes for the Magic. And with the Bucks, they just have such a deeper team with Chris Middleton, Bledsoe, Brook Lopez, Matthews. You got the other Lopez, Robin Lopez, Dante DiVincenzo, George Hill, Marvin Williams, Pat Connaughton. You're going to get some Kyle Korver in the mix there too. So I'm saying 4-1 maybe, but I'm going to make a prediction of a sweep here, 4-0. I just think that Isaac, the injury from Isaac, not only hurts them on what would happen on the floor, I think it takes a little bit of starch away from an Orlando Magic team that knew everything would have to go right for them to have an opportunity in a series like this, and then you lose one of your young up-and-coming better players, and I think it doesn't give you a good feeling going into this series. In the 2-7 matchup, we got Toronto against Brooklyn, and these are two teams that I really respect a lot right now. Gotta be honest. Toronto, what they've done this year, after winning the title last year, losing Kawhi, losing Danny Green, and not really adding much, they've just had so many of their key players take a step forward and take more on. Van Vliet, Siakam, Anunoby, Powell in particular, those 4 have all improved so much, and you throw them with the veteran quality of Lowry, Ibaka, Gasol. It gives you so much versatility with this team. They have the nice wings to throw at you there, some good size to throw at you. They can match up in many different ways. And they were the team that got down because of being in Toronto. They had to get down to Orlando early and quarantine longer, and they've been down there and they've gelled as a team, and you can see Their defense has been incredible. Inside the bubble, they had the best defensive rating by a long shot. They were number 2 overall defensive rating throughout the season, number 13 with the offensive rating. They're 5th in three-point percentage. They were mid-pack regular season with 15 turnovers a game, 15.1. In the bubble, they did have an 18.7 average of turnovers per game, which was the most in the league. So they were turning the ball over a lot. Brooklyn, I'll tell you, and Toronto went 6-1 in the bubble. They were really good. Brooklyn, 35-37. They went 5-3 in the bubble and had no business winning 5 games. And they really should have beat the Blazers at the end in that final game when LeVert was awesome. It was so good. And Lillard was so good, and LeVert had a chance to win the game at the very end, and he sort of, I don't want to say settled, but he settled for a jumper instead of taking to the rim when he was getting to the rim at will. So, they're just undermanned. They actually scored 115 points in 6 straight games in the bubble. But you look at the way they need to score. It's so much Karis LeVert. With the defense and the options that Toronto has to throw at Brooklyn, they're going to make it so difficult on him. LeVert, Jared Allen, Joe Harris, Garrett Temple, Timothy Luwawu, Tyler Johnson, Kouroukas, and Justin Anderson. They're missing 3 of their top 5 minutes per game players. No Kyrie, obviously. No Dinwiddie. No Taurean Prince. No DeAndre Jordan. No Wilson Chandler. It just feels like too big of a hill to climb. And the 1 and 2 seeds wouldn't be shocking if they were both sweeps to me in the East. I think Brooklyn will get one. I'll say 4-1 here, but very easily could be a sweep on with both the 1 and 8 with Milwaukee and Orlando, and then the 2 and 7 with Toronto and Brooklyn. We move on to the 3-6. This is going to be an upset I'm going to pick, and I think the Celtics are the better team than what this group of the 76ers has, but this is going to be the moment for Joel Embiid. This is going to be what he's wanted. He's wanted to be the guy. He's wanted to be the star. He's wanted to be the focus, the center of attention, and he's going to be it in this series. He has to be the best player on the court. The Celtics are deeper. They're playing pretty well right now. But I think a lot of folks are sort of dismissing the rest of the 76ers roster. Joel Embiid could, have incredible games and lead this team. But it's not as if the rest of the 76ers are a bunch of slouches. They're going to need big performances from the likes of Tobias Harris, which could, Tobias Harris averages just under 20 points a game. They're going to need big performances from Josh Richardson, who has the opportunity to take his game to the next level. They're going to need Al Horford to lead, to help facilitate things, to help run the offense, to help stretch the court. They can win this series. I actually think in a situation without Ben for a few games, it won't hurt them as much as it would over a long period of time. I don't think Philly is good enough to win. What's funny about this matchup, I don't think Philly could beat Toronto or Milwaukee because I think they have too many bigs to throw at them. Who's going to guard Joel Embiid? We're talking Tice, we're talking Cantor, we're talking Williams. I don't know if Joel is playing well and he's able to stay healthy through this series. And keep in mind, he doesn't have to play 7 good games. He's got to play 4 good games, or 5, every other game. Play really well. Doesn't have to worry about going on the road to play in Boston, where Philly was horrible on the road all year long. And if Embiid is getting double-teamed and he can make the pass to Tobias Harris, to Josh Richardson, to a Horford, to a Shake Milton, who's had to take over now and sort of run the show. They've talked a lot about Matisse Thybulle, who is an excellent defensive player, and they're going to need to throw him on, Tatum, Brown, Hayward. Problem is, Thybulle doesn't really have much from an offensive standpoint. He doesn't shoot well, and he's not much of an offensive threat. So you put him in the game, you're basically Boston's able to really leave him alone on the other side of the court. If this was the second or third series in the playoffs, I would be worried that Embiid was a little too tired. But in the first round, I think he can do it. I think this series goes 7. And I'm gonna pick Philly here to upset Boston. And what's funny about this is I would pick Boston, I think, to beat. I would pick Toronto to beat Boston, but I would pick both Toronto and Boston to beat Milwaukee. It's just all about matchups. And I think Boston does not have the bigs they need to throw at Embiid to make him work. Now, wings, can Harris, can Richardson, can Thybulle help slow down the wings of the Celtics? The Celtics are number 4 in offensive rating, number 4 in defensive rating. Philly was number 8 in defensive rating, number 14 in offensive rating. Celtics 48-24, 5-3 in the bubble. Philly 42-30, 3-4 in the bubble. What's up with the health of Kemba Walker? What are we going to get out of him? Gordon Hayward looked really good. In his last 7 games, he averaged just under 5 free throw attempts, which was basically twice what he was averaging during the season. You're attacking the rim, feeling a little froggy out there, feeling a little healthy. But the reason why I think this will be a good series and we'll end up going 7 too is, you look at Boston, and from a depth perspective, they're not the deepest team in the world once you get past their starters. You got Tatum, Walker, Kemba, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, Tice, Smart. You go 6 deep solidly. What will they be able to get from Cantor? And then anybody else on their bench? Do you trust anybody else on their bench? Are they going to be able to get big minutes from Robert Williams? Is he going to be able to give them a few good minutes against Joel in here? And that's the thing. Is Joel ready to take on this load? Can he be the man and dominate a series like this? He absolutely has the talent to do so. Does he have the maturity and the composure? And what scares me about picking Philly is, from a coaching perspective, I think, Brad Stevens is much, much better than Brett Brown. Just worlds better. So I like this series. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to go 7. And I'm going to pick Philly in 7 just because of the matchup. Can we get a good Embiid game every other game in here? Can he be good enough to carry this team? The 4-5 matchup out in the East is the Heat versus the Pacers. And the Pacers are going to be without Sabonis. We hear that TJ Warren has plantar fasciitis. He should be playing, but he might be banged up a little bit. For the Heat, none is going to have to be getting back into the swing of things. And remember the Jimmy Butler, TJ Warren rivalry that they've had. Now Jimmy Butler has said that that's done. They played against each other the other day, and after TJ Warren was unbelievable in the bubble, he averaged 31 points per game, shooting just under 58% from the field. But against the Heat, he didn't play very well. And he was 5 for 14 on August the 10th. So the Pacers, it's unfortunate. Every year they get there, they have a good year, they overachieve, they get to the playoffs, and then it seems like they have a big injury and they're missing a key piece. And this year it's the same thing. They're going to be missing Sabonis. Does Turner have enough? Is he enough of a big man to be able to defend, score, give them everything they would need from a big? I don't know. He likes to stretch the floor a little bit more. And is Oladipo all the way back? Is he completely ready? Is he going to give us any semblance of the old Victor Oladipo? Does he feel comfortable? Because now we're looking at no Sabonis. Malcolm Brogdon has looked good. He's been back and he's looked good, and he's had some good playoff runs too. He is a clutch player. So if you get Warren, Brogdon, Oladipo, Turner, I don't know if that's enough to match up with a Heat team who is pretty deep. You know, you look at this Heat team, and they actually are number 7 in offensive rating, number 12 in defensive rating. Pacers are 6 in defensive rating, and number 19 in offensive rating. But the Heat are the number 1 shooting three-point percentage team in the league. They shot 38%. So, you know, they're a team that they have a ton of firepower. They're built pretty well. And what's nice about them is they also have a closer now in Butler. Something that they may have not had in years past when they were always teams that seemed to overachieve. So with Butler, with Dragic, Adebayo is the key. With his size, can Turner match up with Adebayo? I don't think so. And if Turner gets in trouble with no Sabonis, who does Indiana have to go to as your next big man? They are so thin with bigs off the bench. Miami, on the other hand, you know, Butler, Dragic, Adebayo, you have Hero and Duncan Robinson. They are a well-built team that I think is going to get through a tough first-round series with an Indiana team that always plays tough. But I think Miami wins this in 6, and I think Miami will go on and put up a good fight against Milwaukee, but still come up a little bit short there. So I think Miami beats the Pacers in 6, and a lot of it, you know, because I have so many question marks about the Pacers without a Sabonis, with question marks about Warren's health, with question marks about Oladipo. Before we get over to the West, let's talk a little bit about Thrive Fantasy, a new DFS app for prop betting. And if you check out Thrive Fantasy and you deposit $20, you'll get an instant $20 bonus credit if you use the promo code GINO, G-I-N-O. Punch that promo code in. So what Thrive Fantasy is, it's like one of those daily fantasy apps that you've seen, you know, where you can play in all these different contests. But this one is built around prop betting. And so what you will do is you'll build your lineup and you will pick from the props that they have, and you will select totals on the props, over or under, and there will be a point total selected along with which that you pick. So, for example, Tom Brady, will he throw for over or under 250 yards? Over, you'll get 100 points. Under, you'll get 80. You pick and choose. You build your lineup all the way down. Promo code GINO gets you an instant $20 bonus credit soon as you put that promo code in and you deposit your 20. So deposit your 20, promo code GINO. You can play in contests where you're playing for $1, $5, $20, $100, where you're playing against hundreds of other competitors, head-to-heads, where you're playing in groups of 5 or 10. And I mean, I'm always in this. I always have checked out these sites. If you have any questions at all, Thrive Fantasy, let me know. I'll help you get through the process. And hey, who doesn't like playing or checking something out when you get a nice little bonus? And if you are just interested, you've heard it, you like to play these different fantasy sports stuff, they have baseball, basketball, when football will be back up. They've got golf going on right now, soccer, League of Legends, every sport that's happening, they have different contests going over on Thrive Fantasy. Promo code GINO, make that $20 deposit, it'll get you $20 right back in your account. Let's talk West, and we'll start with the 1 versus the 8, Lakers versus Trailblazers. And if you were just following along on social media or listening to some of the shows out there, or watching some of the television, you would think that the Blazers were the favorites to win this. And the Blazers have been on this really cool run where they've had to win every game basically in order to keep going over the last week and a half, in order to get to the point where they were, and they had a couple different times where if they would have lost one more game, they wouldn't have even had the opportunity to get into a play, and that's how tight it was towards the end. The problem that I have is I think they're going to run out of gas here, and the way that they've been being covered, it's been as if they've been blowing teams out. They did all of this to get into the 8th spot, and they were allowing a ton of points in all these games and playing zero defense. They just allowed 130 plus points to the Nets that were not, they were undermanned. They were not a deep Nets roster. So if the people out there that are picking the Blazers to win this series and say that they don't like the Lakers in this series, if you're saying it's because you don't think the Lakers are going to be able to shut down Damian Lillard, I can agree with you. I don't think they'll be able to shut him down. I think you can do whatever you can to make things as difficult as possible on him, but you'll never really be able to shut down a really good player who's in a rhythm like he is. The problem is, who's going to stop LeBron or Anthony Davis? First, let's go with LeBron. You're going to put Carmelo Anthony on LeBron? Good luck in that situation. Number 2, Nurkic is not going to be able to keep up with Anthony Davis and bang with him for 7 games. You try to throw Whiteside at him again, good luck with either one of them trying to keep up with an Anthony Davis. So I just think that Portland will be a more difficult 8-1 matchup than what the Lakers would have liked to see when you play all the way through the season and you secure the number 1 seed. You want to make your road to the finals as easy as possible, and I think the Clippers actually have an easier road to the final, to the conference final, and meet up with the Lakers than the Lakers do, having to start with Portland here and go, against a player like Lillard who can legitimately go for 50 points any night of the week. So with no Bradley for the Lakers and no Rondo for the Lakers, it's going to be a lot of Alex Caruso trying to help out on Lillard. And I think he will do what's nice about Alex Caruso, and I'm not saying he's going to be able to stop Damian Lillard one-on-one. He's a very good team defender. So what he will do is he will help sort of funnel things towards AD. I know you don't really want that with Lillard, but you have to kind of pick your poison with him. He's so good, so deep behind the three-point line that if you don't start pressuring him there and sort of forcing him into the paint, then you're going to give up a 40% shooter behind the arc easily. So you got to pick your poison. With CJ McCollum being banged up and having the back injury and trying to play through that, with Nurkic not having played in a while and coming back and having to play in these big games all the way through, I think it's going to wear on him a little bit. And this team isn't very deep either, this Blazers team. I think they'll end up winning a game or two in this series. Like I said, it's not going to be for the Lakers. Really, I don't think even the Clippers as easy as it will be for either of the top 2 seeds in the East getting through their first round matchups. That's always been the discussion about the West this year and over the last few years, that you don't really have any cakewalks. And in particular this year, when you look at the 8th seeded Blazers, because this 8th seeded Blazers team is not an 8th seed. That's why some people are picking them to beat the Lakers, because they would have more likely been probably a 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7 seed if they were healthy all the way through. Probably still wouldn't have been a top 2 or 3, but maybe in that 4 through 7 range. And they're they're good enough to win a game or two. They have the number 3 offensive rating, but they have the 27th defensive rating in the league. And we saw Karis LeVert getting to the rim at will, getting whatever he wanted against them. I have a tough time seeing them stop LeBron. And I think a lot of people are getting too caught up in a Lakers team that didn't look very good in the bubble. Very similar to what happened with Milwaukee. They didn't have anything to play for. They had these great years all the way through, and now they were to the point where there's 8 games left. They just want to stay healthy and continue to hold on to this number 1 seed, which they had locked up, and work out some new rotations, right? No Avery Bradley, who had been a starter and a big part of your team. Rondo was a big part off the bench. Now you are incorporating more Alex Caruso, Dion Waiters. I could see Dion Waiters having a big role in this series off the bench for the Lakers and do some of the things that Karis LeVert was doing on a smaller scale just attacking, getting to the rim, instant offense, I don't know if the Blazers are going to be able to stop that. And if you have someone like Waiters, what's nice is he is more offensive-minded than a Caruso or someone else, so he'll at least force someone like Lillard to have to move his feet to stay in front of him, or someone like McCollum to have to do that. You want to make their guards have to work a little bit on the defensive end too. So this will be a fun series. You know, the Lakers are the number 11 offensive rating, the number 3 defensive rating, and they've seen Kyle Kuzma really improve. He's healthy. He seemed like over this time period he has gotten just more confident about his role and what the Lakers need from him in order for them to be successful. This should be, as a fan, of course I didn't want to see Lillard in the first round. I never want to have the most difficult road through, because how about for the Lakers, if they win this series, they'll have to, if they want to win the final, win this title this year, they're going to have to go through the Blazers, a better than 8-seeded team against a hot Lillard. They'll have to beat either OKC or Houston, and then they'll have to beat the Clippers, most likely, and then, you know, whoever comes in from the East. Whereas the Clippers, I think the Clippers, it seems like the teams that the Clippers are playing would have been better matchups, I think, for the Lakers if they were to flip-flop spots. The Utah-Denver series, that doesn't scare me at all. Whoever comes out of that, I think the Clippers or the Lakers would handle very easily. Versus Houston or OKC, they'll make you work a little bit. And because of the ties between the Clippers and some of the players from Houston, some of the players from OKC, I felt like there would have been a fun additional, additional storylines there, and maybe some feelings back and forth. But we probably won't see those, or we won't see those unless it were to be in the conference finals and the Lakers are knocked out. So I'm gonna say Lakers in I'm gonna say 5, could be 6. I genuinely just don't see how the Blazers stop the Lakers. I just think there's a little bit too much with AD, with LeBron. The Lakers have the size to match up well with the Blazers. They don't have the guards to match up all that well with them. But again, it's, the size of the Lakers with AD, with LeBron, I think is just a little too much for Portland. They don't have anyone to really throw at them. Game 1 on Tuesday. So the Clippers, the 2-7 series, Clippers-Mavericks here. Usually in the NBA, there's some growing pains, right? A team has to go through the growing pains once. They usually get to the playoffs. They have to, find themselves, and then the second and third years they're able to improve. I think that's probably going to be the case for Dallas, who has the best offensive rating in the league, number 18 defensive rating. Clippers were the number 2 offensive rating and the number 5 defensive rating. Now, the reason why I think Dallas will steal a game or two is because the Clippers have had a lot of issues in this bubble themselves. They've had injuries to Shamet, Pat Beverly. They've had Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell in and out of the bubble, and Montrez just coming back and just should be able to play now after his quarantine. So they haven't been a smooth operating machine through all of this. I think they're going to have some bumps in the first round, but they'll probably be really starting to round into form come, games 5 or 6 of this series. If they go 6, and then into their second round matchup with will probably be Denver. This Clippers team is good. There's no beating around the bush. They're good. They're deep. It's just, are they ready? And did they get enough time to get these pieces back together? You sometimes having a bunch of really, good players on your roster all the way down is great, but if they don't fit and they haven't had the time to work together and have the right chemistry, it's not always just magic. They have a lot of options, though. I think one of the places where they may struggle in this series is trying to guard Porzingis, who he's looked like one of the better versions of Porzingis that I can ever remember. He feels healthy. The way that he played in this bubble, he was excellent. and he could help them win a game or two. So I feel this sort of the same way as I feel about the Lakers-Blazers series. I don't think it's a scare for the Clippers, but I think they have a couple small issues to iron out. And Dallas, on the backs of Doncic and Porzingis, I think will play well enough to win a game or two. So I'll say the same type of thing. Clippers in 5 or 6. Let's say Clippers in 5. Then we move on to the Nuggets Jazz series, and what hurt this series quite a bit is Mike Conley, unfortunately, won't be playing for the first couple games. He's gone. He went to go to the birth of his child, so congratulations to him. Just unfortunate that it came at this timing where he's going to have to miss a couple games in this playoff series when he comes back. And with Conley gone, no Bogdanovic, Utah just does not have enough. Gobert will do his best to try to slow down Jokic, and I think he'll make him work a little bit. But even Denver missing Barton and Harris and having some questions themselves, they've had a real bubble star in Michael Porter Jr. stepping in and averaging 22 points a game on 51% shooting and over 42% from behind the three. So when Denver gets... If they get Barton and Harris back and they're healthy, and then you throw in Michael Porter Jr. there, he could be the X factor on this team that brings them to another level that they haven't been the last few years when it's just been a Jokic and a Murray. If they have a Porter Jr. and he's out there, he could be that wild card that legitimately makes them into a title contender. We have to see it out there over a period of time with their whole team or with as much of their whole team together, because missing Barton and Harris would really hurt. They would need the depth still to get through a Lakers or a Clippers squad. I do think they'll be able to get through this Jazz squad pretty easily. I'm going to say the Nuggets here in 6 get through this one. The Nuggets with their defensive rating of 16, their offensive rating is 5. Jazz with their defensive rating of 13, their offensive rating was 9. These games in this series start on Monday. And then in the final series, the 4-5 in the West, it is Thunder, it is OKC Thunder, it is Houston. Houston with the offensive rating of 6, OKC with the offensive rating of 17. They're not quite as good offensively, but solid defensively, top 10 with a 7 defensive rating. The big story with this series is, when is Russell Westbrook going to come back? How many games is he going to miss? And genuinely, I think that's what this series is going to come down to. Without Westbrook, Houston might not have enough. This Oklahoma City team has played really, really well this year. And there's so many fun back and forth storylines, right? You've got Harden, who went from Oklahoma City to Houston. You've got Chris Paul, who's back who's in Oklahoma City now after going from Houston there. You've got, Westbrook, who we'll see when he comes in. He's obviously also come from OKC. So you've got these major figures in this series who have gone back and forth. There's a lot of, I don't know about bad blood, but a lot of history. And OKC matches up pretty well with Houston because OKC doesn't really play that big themselves. They play Adams, but they can stretch you out and go small, with Gallinari, and then they can throw the 3 guards in there with CP3, with Schroeder, and with Shea. Thunder's lineup of Chris Paul, Schroeder, Shea, Gallinari, and Steven Adams, net rating of 29.9. Among lineups that have played at least 100 minutes, that was the best in the NBA. So OKC has overachieved all year long, and I think they're going to win the series. I really do. I'm going to pick them in 7. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth series. I think it's going to be really tough, but I'm picking OKC in 7 to get through and to move on to play the Lakers in round 2. The NBA playoffs start on Monday, and what's unique, too, and it's a little bit different about this year, is we're just going to be going for these first-round matchups. It's going to be every other day back and forth, and they're going to be 4 games a day. Monday, 10:30 a.m. or 1:30 a.m. Eastern, 10:30 Pacific time. First game, Utah-Denver. Then we got Brooklyn-Toronto, second game. Philly-Boston, third game. Dallas-Clippers, the final game on Monday. Then on Tuesday, it's Orlando-Milwaukee, Miami-Indiana, OKC-Houston, Portland-Lakers. Couple overall big picture things. No home court advantage. So will that benefit the underdogs? Or because they don't have to worry about going on the road? Or will it benefit the better teams because the underdogs aren't going to have that natural point in the series after the first couple games where they get to go home and feel like the momentum shifts? If a team is down 2-0, will they be able to make the necessary changes and tweaks when they don't go home and get that warm and fuzzy feeling? This is going to be a whole different ball game. It really is. A crazy 2020. We are set for the NBA playoffs. So when it comes down to it, I do think just kind of an overall look at the bracket. I think Toronto is going to come out of the East. I think Toronto is going to be able to beat Boston if they have to beat Boston or Philly in the next round. I'm going to pick Philly, and then I think it'll be Milwaukee and Miami. I think Milwaukee can beat Miami, and I think Toronto will win the East. I think they're going to come out of the East, and I think it's going to be Toronto Lakers. I think the Lakers have a difficult road, but the size of the Lakers in a 7-game series over the Clippers is, I think, what could get the Lakers by the Clippers there. So I think it'll be Lakers-Clippers in the conference finals, and I'm going to pick the Lakers there. So I'm going Lakers-Raptors. NBA 2020 playoffs, folks. I am pumped. Starts on Monday. Oh, those of you who like candles, don't forget about Cera Candle Company. CERA Candles.com is the website. Their goal was to create that candle that's 100% natural and clean burning and of the highest quality. We had Tyler Herringer on the show last week, talked all about the process, the all-natural soy wax, none of those toxins found in paraffin wax, which is in a lot of the other leading brands, and the 100% lead-free cotton wicks, natural scents, over 25 different scents, 3 different sizes, instructions and details, how to keep your candle clean and ensure the perfect burn. And with the promo code GINO, it gets you 10% off your purchase. So help out a small business. If you're just someone who likes candles, next time you go to purchase a couple, check out Cera Candle Company at ceracandles.com. Promo code GINO gets you 10% off your purchase. Hard Knocks, episode 1. In this episode of Hard Knocks, and this year Hard Knocks, is going to be a little different than some of the Hard Knocks that we've seen before. So it's HBO. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Hard Knocks, it's the behind the scenes of an NFL team preparing for each season. And so this year, obviously, it is much, much different because it's a lot about all of the new protocols. It's all about the different world of 2020. We begin with Anthony, and it's about the Chargers and the Rams in Los Angeles. And it starts out with Anthony Lynn. He's on a Zoom meeting with all the Charger players and talking about the new protocols, and he mentions that he had the virus. And I thought he came off great. There was a lot more Chargers than Rams stuff in this first episode. And Anthony Lynn, when you see him for just a few minutes, you can understand why he was hired as a head coach and why he would get a job anywhere. He's just a very knowledgeable guy, but he's a very down-to-earth guy. He just sounds... I instantly liked him. He just seemed like someone I wanted to sit down and talk with, and we see all the setup for training camp with all the social distancing and the mask, and they're not able to use their hands in certain things. We meet Anthony Lynn's wife, and he's out there barbecuing. He's talking about how they met. It's really funny. He's telling the story about how he was in Cleveland, and it was supposed to be the worst place for single men, and that's where he met his wife. And I love how he came off. I thought he came off really, really good in this episode, and I'm gonna go play for him. Really, someone that when coaches, you hear the coach speak a lot, and you hear them say cliche things, but sometimes you never really get to hear an interview, or if it's a team you root for, maybe you know the coach a little better than some of the others. And this is some of the most I've ever seen of Anthony Lynn and heard from him, and I really liked what I saw. And then my guy, Sean McVay. I love Shawnee McVay, too. He's great. He's an absolute machine in the Rams. He's setting things up for the Rams, and then we see him back with his fiance. He's happy to have had time, like I think a lot of families have, had more time together, but he's ready to get back to work. He's teaching the dog how to play basketball in the pool, and we see the Chargers all going through their COVID testing. You know, we're bouncing back and forth between the Chargers and the Rams throughout the episode. So the Chargers, they have their temperature checks and the nasal swabs, and lots of guys are nervous or sort of scared about all the swabs and the testing. And the Rams on their side, they're dealing with the same stuff. They're testing all their setup, where they're going to have their meetings. The Chargers, you know, they have their classrooms all spread out. When one of the coaches is talking to each group of, the linemen or whatever group of position players he's talking to, they are really spread out. Nobody's sitting in the first few rows. They have to really emphasize over and over how much the players have to wear masks on the practice field and how important all of this stuff is. Sean McVay, actually, he likes the face shield. So he puts the face shield on because people can see him, and he feels a little bit more like they can see him smile, and he likes that because he can see them smile or cry or react. And remember, for the Chargers now, the franchise quarterback, Justin Herbert, number 6 pick, he's taking some snaps in the walkthroughs. Everything's very slow in these first, these rollouts for the first week of spring training. No pads till week 3 of training camp, or not spring training, of training camp. No preseason games. But Joey Bosa, the big deal, $130 million 5-year deal he signed. We see him signing the contract, the highest paid defensive player in the game. He gets emotional talking about his family and the sacrifices, and the boys razz him about the money and what's he going to buy? Is it going to be a boat? Where's he going to spend the cash there? One thing that Bosa is having trouble figuring out is same thing that Anthony Lynn's having a tough time. They don't know everybody all that well, and now you've got a mask on out there, and these are new people that you're meeting for the first time, and you don't know who the hell's who. And Lynn joked, he walked up to one of the coaches who had a mask on, glasses on, and a hat on. He's like, I don't know who this is. So we then see the Rams going through one of their walkthroughs. They're going through the motions, running some plays, and we see Aaron Donald, who is just so jacked up. Quarterback Dante Dion has a fun personality. He's trying to become a big part of this Rams team. We see him hanging around with the cornerbacks, with Jalen Ramsey, who's trying to get a new contract extension. And the media keeps asking Ramsey all about it, and he does not want to talk about it. He gets pissed when they're discussing it. He mentions a few times, my agent and the team's going to deal with it, and they keep asking, so he just walks off. And they convince him to come back, and then he comes back to the Zoom meeting, but he really lets them know he's done talking about this. One thing Anthony Lynn didn't mind talking about is that he doesn't know what this year is going to be like, especially from a quarterback standpoint. We see the number 6 pick, Herbert, and he signs his deal, and Coach Lynn is not going to make any promises about who's playing when. He just knows this is a different year, and so even if he planned to sit him out the whole year, he may have to play. He looks so good in practice, Herbert, the way he throws the ball, the way he drops it back. The players are oohing and awing because that's what he is. He's the practice kind of prototypical what a quarterback looks like. The problems with him have been in the game when it speeds up in his decision-making. So Coach Lynn talks about his experiences with COVID to a coach. He contracted the disease, and he was watching golf, and a golfer was talking about what he felt like, and Anthony Lynn sort of felt the same, and so he went and got tested and found out that he was positive. And, I mean, I really, again, I've said it 4 or 5 times, I really love what I saw from Anthony Lynn. He talked about how he wanted the players, he's talking to them on a Zoom call, and he lets them know he wants them to be themselves and protest however they want. So the players are sort of discussing what they can do as a team to feel comfortable making their statement. Some positive news, as of week 2 of camp, no positive test for the Chargers for COVID, and only 1 positive test for the Rams. So, and that rookie Terrell Lewis has to quarantine, rookie linebacker on a 10-day quarantine. And then some of the sadder parts of these episodes and these shows are when we see them having to make the cuts. And Chargers coach Anthony Lynn is making cuts on the phone, having to discuss it. He has a couple meetings as they make their final cuts. And we just sort of see little clips of everyone in their Zoom meetings over the last couple months, eating their hot dogs, working out in their cars with their pets. They've had to, become Zoom experts and experts in these apps and meetings. And McVay, it was really funny when the episode's over, so we're watching the credits. He says, "Oh, hey, don't be that guy that takes a shit in the porta potties," and the guys are all laughing about it. And they were talking about how it had to be somebody from the Hard Knocks crew who was doing that. So the first episode of Hard Knocks, all about the different world of 2020 and what it will be like for these NFL players trying to navigate through what is already difficult, an NFL season, your workouts, everything you have to go through, and now you add these new protocols on top of all of it. Crazy. Tuesday nights, 10 Eastern on HBO. Okay, time to get to Canterbury. Let's talk some Monday racing. We're going to go over to Canterbury with Dave Handeland. We're going to talk Canterbury late pick 5 sequence for Monday. Kick back and enjoy. So we're recording a little early this week on That's What G Said, mainly because the NBA playoffs are starting on Monday, and it's going to be a different NBA playoffs than ever. We're going to have 4 games a day. We're playing every other day through this first round. So I figured, why not talk a little early week racing? And to join me so we could talk about a couple of the Canterbury cards is Dave Handeland over from Canterbury over in Minnesota. Dave, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. How are you doing, Gino?
Oh, doing good. But I spoke with you off the air a few days ago. I don't think I'm doing as great as you. I don't think most people are doing as great as you are doing the last week or so, because you had a very nice score last week. Why don't you tell some of the folks out there about what you hit?
So Thursday night at Canterbury Park, I went there to make a couple plays and play the late pick 5. And as I was getting ready to exit, it was like race 4 going on. I was like, you know what? I've already got my opinion on my pick 5. Let's just take a swing here and see what happens. People on jackpot bets, people have a bunch of different thoughts. Well, the carryover was about $9,000, and I was kind of watching where we were at, and there's about $5,000 being bet into the pick 6 pool. So pretty good value there. Like, it doesn't take much to happen. Mm-hmm. So I throw in a cute little $51 ticket, no solos, like a 2x4x2x2 by like 4x2. It was very minimal. And catch a 2-1 to start, then another 2-1, then a 4-5, and then another 2-1, and then a 5-1. And I'm expecting at this point, Gino, going into the last leg, like, all right, well, my cute little ticket probably will get $300 on the favorite in a 6-horse race. The 3-1 or the third favorite, this thing maybe I'll pay me $700. I'm sitting at home with my wife, and all of a sudden I see the will pays pop up.
And you're, oh no!
And I let out a scream of like, what? Huh? Because I just assumed I punched my ticket in wrong, Gino, because I was alive to 2 horses, and one of which was the favorite, paying like $950, but the other horse was this 4 horse that was paying the jackpot, and 4 other horses in the race were paying 5-6. So the first few thoughts were like, I screwed up my ticket, because there's no way I'm the person hitting this potentially.
It wasn't so hard, but it was weird because that's how these jackpots are and these things are. It's like you just kind of get one 5-1 tricky horse that somebody didn't use on a ticket, and that's it. And it wasn't big enough to people probably playing big tickets, so it was just a really sharp thing that you did to come in and swoop it.
It just completely caught off guard. Like that it wasn't even crossing my mind that I was going to have something that takes down the pool. So then I'm seeing that like, wow, this is an option. So then my other thought, Gino, that ran through my head was, I watched earlier races, but did I watch them all the way through? Did I have a horse get DQ'd? And all of a sudden some like 20-1 got put up. So I'm going through the other races trying to see, all right, something happened here that I'm not catching. And no, I'm alive. So we're watching the race, and yeah, it was my horse, my pool cleaner. looked like she was done at the top of the stretch, and then kind of fought back. The rail opened up. She took the rail, looked like I was going to win, and then all of a sudden the favorite started coming down at the end, and luckily won by a head, and I knew there was no commotion or anything, and we're jumping and screaming like,
cool.
Like my previous big win on this, like this doubles up anything I had. Like,
that's so cool.
My bachelor party, 4 of us hit the pick six at Gulfstream for like 28,000. So that made a fun Vegas bachelor party, but
and a great story.
This was me on the own, yeah.
Oh man, and the way it happened too, like it wasn't a big pool, it wasn't something you were mapping out. It was just sort of a last minute thing too before you left, because you're playing the pick 5, and you put $50 into it. It wasn't a massive investment. You sent me a picture of this ticket. I saw it. I mean, that is awesome. I was so happy to hear for someone who those are. I like it when as a horse player, someone like this. These are the fun stories to hear about people getting rewarded in the jackpots and things like that. The people that play the races every day, people that know the tracks, that it's a small ticket. It's not some big ticket. Like we've heard about $65,000 tickets buying pools recently and things like that. Those
are good bets, right? Do you know?
This was yeah, when there's a $300,000 max pull and it's like, oh my gosh, this is the way horse racing is supposed to be. When you have fun, you're putting something in for $50, and even if you're not, like you said, you were expecting right where you would have gotten for the favorite around $900, maybe something in that range, like between 500 and 1,000. You'd have been happy with that, and then you see that big pool one flash up there, and it gets your heart pumping, and that's a fun 15-20 minutes leading up to the race, and awesome, man. I'm really, really happy for you. And we're going to see if we can keep that mojo rolling. So did you have a good weekend with the family afterwards?
Yeah, good weekend with the family afterwards. And so part of that, which we're going to get into eventually here. So like I hit the pick 4, pick 5, and pick 6. So the pick 5 was the same junky sequence. Mm-hmm. And somehow that still paid like $13.60. And I was like, I have no idea. Like I had a friend there at the track who hit it on like a $27 ticket. Like we have no idea where this money was spent on these tickets that died. I assume it was the second to last leg with Mr. Jägermeister and Mr. Banjo Man. And that had to be where tickets died because, man, it paid way too much for what was involved. Like, I have a friend who says, the racing gods owe me nothing, so I can't complain about anything here for the time
for a while.
being. Yeah,
because a little bit, no bad beats or no noses for a while because you got a nice one here. But again, you're the type of person, which is good, that deserves to get a nice one because you're playing it every day, you're taking your shots every day, you're putting your opinion out there, you're spending your money, and you're supporting your local track at Canterbury and others. So that was just a cool story. I'm glad, and now it's nice. Gives you a little feeling of confidence for a little while you're handicapping the races and while you're building your tickets, and we'll take a couple swings here this week for Monday and Tuesday. But before we get into the handicapping, I know you're a big basketball guy and do a lot of stuff up there with the T-Wolves. Explain before you give me your opinion too. Explain to everybody else one more time that may not have heard last time what some of the stuff you've done with the T-Wolves and what your job is up there, and then give me a quick thought or two on the playoffs that start Monday. Who do you think is going to make a big run? Is there a team that you think might go a little farther, or maybe one of these heavy favorites? And the Bucks, Lakers, Clippers are kind of the top 3 on a tier above anyone else. Can they get beat? Just give us like a minute or two overall thoughts on the NBA playoffs coming up.
Yeah. So first question first. So I also work for the Timberwolves, and I do statistics for the radio broadcast. So I sit with the radio announcer Alan Horton. And I'm writing everything down by hand, just who scores the basket at what point, trying to catch any other trends. So when you hear the announcer on the broadcast say it's a 12-2 run over the last 2:38,
that's you.
The Timberwolves have hit. In the Timberwolves case, they've missed 8 straight shots. different things like that. Kevin Durant's got 14 points, 7 rebounds on 6 of 7 shooting here in the third quarter. So. Like the announcer has the regular box score in front of them, so I'm kind of doing everything by hand and passing post-it notes, and then we're catching up during commercial breaks and talking. So yeah, I've done that for 15 years, love it. Always with the home radio, and I've done some other stuff with like Big Ten Network of doing football and basketball for that. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. So
Awesome.
I love the NBA. It's fun. This is bubble. The bubble it's worked out phenomenal.
It has
Adam
as best
Silver
as
did
they
a
could
great
imagine,
job.
right? Yeah, it really as best as they could imagine with and the way it worked out, where there were so many teams battling for that last spot, still to the very end. There were like all these unofficial play-in games before the play-in game.
And you got to. Do you agree with me on this? This has got to be something that Adam Silver sees.
100%.
And he's as he knows what the public thinks, and he responds to them and gets involved. So he sees. Look at the excitement that this has created. When you had all these teams in the West, was more so where it happened. But you see all those teams jockeying around and like, all right, this is something we can build on and take into future seasons because this is great to watch.
Between this and the way that the All-Star game was received with the new format, it just shows you that when there's this winner go home mentality and how much more it feels like is on the line. It's like a March Madness kind of thing. When you feel like and you can't do it over and over. You don't want to have your playoffs go one game and done. But as far as what they've done here to get in, you said this has to be something they bottle, they look at for next year and for future years because it was great. It worked out well. We got to see some of these bubble stars show up, players who came out and over a couple weeks just may have raised their stock quite a bit. And then, some of the teams that may not have, like the Lakers didn't play very well, the Bucks didn't play very well, but they were kind of in weird situations because they didn't really have to. They were just kind of going through the motions. You kind of just want to stay healthy and not get anybody hurt. So a team like Toronto looked really, really good. Maybe they come into the playoffs firing well. They got down to Orlando a little bit earlier than everyone because of being in Toronto. They had to get down there earlier in quarantine. So, where do you kind of stand? Give me a team or two on each side who you like or who you think is going to play well.
So it's not much of a surprise, but I'm leaning towards the Clippers in this scenario. Just the whole Kawhi, Paul George, and just the pieces that they have. The Lakers are the one, but it seems like LeBron and AD, and how's LeBron going to treat clutch time situations, and is he taking the shot or is it AD going to get the shot? But it seems like losing like the Avery Bradleys of the world might hurt the Lakers a little bit.
They weren't as deep to begin with.
Yeah,
they weren't as deep to begin with, the Lakers. So someone like Bradley might hurt. I don't know if Rondo will hurt as much, but Bradley could hurt just from a defensive perspective. He was shooting the three pretty well too. And I'm kind of with you. Like in the West, I wanted to make a case for someone other than the top two. I actually think the Clippers' road to the finals is maybe even a little easier than the Lakers. I think they're a little bit better than Dallas, and it feels like Dallas probably needs a year to go through some growing pains. It generally happens in the NBA. And then whoever the Clippers would have to play in the second round, either the Jazz or Denver, I think that would be a really great matchup. And that to me is probably easier than their first round matchup, but just the way things match up for them too. So yeah, I don't think they have the most difficult road in the world to get there. I do see it. I mean, as a Laker fan too, I would love that Lakers-Clippers matchup because I was hearing it before the year started, and all of a sudden these Clipper fans came out of nowhere. I was like, where did you come from? I didn't know there were all these Clipper fans that existed. So I've been having some fun going back and forth. That would be really cool for LA if and just in general with the star power out there with LeBron and AD and then Kawhi and PG. So yeah, I don't think I could get too cute out on the in the West. What about the East over there? Giannis, he struggled a little bit last year in the playoffs. He's still got to be able to hit the three and hit the free throws, I think, when the game is on the line. But you look at who they're going to face. I mean, they're going to get a very nice cakewalk through the first round against an Orlando team that shouldn't put up much of a fight against them. And they do get pretty well set up. Miami or Indiana, I think their biggest challenges are probably Boston and Toronto, and they won't have to get through two of them, it looks like.
No, they won't have to. Milwaukee should get to the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
The team that I think out there is going to be Boston. It seems like with Tatum and Brown are just a menace as on the wings. We'll see how the Kemba, I know his back's not 100%, but it seems like Boston has enough pieces, especially with the interchangeable wings, that they can cause some havoc. Toronto's been phenomenal. Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
They've surpassed everybody's expectations after losing Kawhi, and they're going to fall off. Like, no, the machine just kept rolling. Nick Nurse is a hell of an NBA coach for turning that roster into a team that wins 74% of their games. So, but I feel Boston. I think Tatum and Brown are just it's going to happen with them, and I think here's the chance of if they can get past the first round, the Sixers with losing Ben Simmons. I just don't know if that team is good enough otherwise to overcome the Ben Simmons injury. So I see Boston getting through there, and then versus Toronto, I think I think they're set up to do that. And then once you get to Giannis, then see how that goes. For as a fellow small market person, I want to see Milwaukee and Giannis make it there. It feels like Boston maybe has, I don't know. I think Brad Stevens is an excellent X's and O's coach, and it feels like he can tweak him good enough without this year. Now he's been with the free of Kyrie, and that they'll be all right for that.
They're sort of like flying under the radar a little bit too, because Toronto played so well that they're becoming, a really hot team. A lot of people are picking them because of how well they've gelled, and you just don't hear a whole lot about Boston. And it's funny because, man, if any team out there may have really benefited from the time off, it was them, because they wouldn't have had any version of Kemba, and at least they're going to have some version of Kemba here. And it feels like Hayward is finally healthy. He's been a lot more aggressive. He's been driving and trying to get to the rim and getting to the free throw line. So, he's another guy you sort of forget about on that team because he's had so many ups and downs and injuries. So now you throw him and Tatum and Brown out there all playing well, those wings, and you have someone like a Marcus Smart who can really help set the tone for you in a playoff series and play some good defense and make things difficult on someone like Milton, who's going to be probably having him to handle the ball a whole lot now without Simmons. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the Boston series I'm so intrigued in. I love the matchups. I think they're going to be good. Whether or not they're able to handle Philly easily, it should be interesting because Boston is so good, like we said, interchangeable wings, but perhaps one of their weaknesses is, do they have a ton of big bodies? Do they have the type of big bodies that they would need to throw at Embiid if he's playing really well? I love Embiid. I just don't know if I could trust him for 7 straight games to be the guy to carry this team, to not get banged up, to have to do it every other day.
Yes. Like, look at him compared to the playoff situation last year when they've got Jimmy Butler and Simmons and Embiid, and all right, only one of them can kind of be fed at once. Where now, all right, Joel, it's your squad. Roll out the ball, time to play.
Put up or shut up time, kind of, for a guy who likes to talk. And hey, you know what? He can absolutely do this and dominate and win a series. I just don't. We have to see it. We have to see him do it for over and over. So yeah, lots of intrigue in the NBA. This last few weeks, I think, really kind of was a nice appetizer, a nice teaser for. Man, what's cool too is the way it's set up. Starting on Monday, you and I are recording this Sunday night, and starting Monday morning, it's going to be 4 games a day, boom, all day long, and then every other day for this first round of the series. I think that's really how they're going to be going, at least for the first couple rounds, every other day, not a lot of in between. So yeah, we'll get through this quick, and we'll have some fun watching sports. So we talked some NBA. We talked about your big score. Let's get a couple big scores for the people this week over at Canterbury. Let's get our past performances out for Monday and that pick 5, the 10% low takeout pick 5. Like Dave just said, even one that you look back and you don't think it's going to pay that well and ends up paying like $1,300. That's what happens with these low takeout pick 5s. You beat a favorite or two, you just get one big price throughout the sequence, and boom, you knock some people out, and you're right there. So we have some babies to kick things off. We got maidens, fillies, 2-year-olds, Minnesota breds. They're going to go 5 furlongs in here. I thought this was what I thought was difficult about this race is that the horses who have the better pedigrees are for barns that aren't as good first time out. And then you have a couple barns that are good first time out, but their pedigrees and the horses maybe not look as good on paper. So you kind of have a hodgepodge. Is it going to be the barns that normally get their horses ready, or is it going to be these horses that might be a little better, but they're generally not ready till their second or third start?
You absolutely nailed that word. Like on paper and even maybe a month down the line. And for the rest, I think the 8 horse, that Hell of a North.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think, so Sky NC, for those who don't know, mom was 6 at 18 overall, won 230,000, but started off her career as a 2-year-old, just went one for one, but then came back when she was 3 and dominated Canterbury, won 3 stakes races, and was 4 or 6 as a 3-year-old. And so the Rakes owned Sky NC, and now they bred and owned Hell of a North. But just the O of 18 trainer Roan with first timers, and I don't know, the month gap in the first work between first and second published work, it's a little bit scary for me on that one of all right, maybe probably if I was going to own one of these, I'd want to own the 8, but if I'm trying to hit the pick 5 on Monday, I don't necessarily know if I want to own the 8.
Completely agree. And a lot of it to me will depend on price. Like if this horse gets hit a little bit, I don't know, like you said, the barn has not been winning with firsters. They're 0 for their last 18, which you see in the past performances. They're 0 for 6 this year, and they're only 5 for 60. Like a capable barn, really good, but this is just, we see different horsemen and horsewomen treat their horses differently. Some of them work them, a bunch to get them ready for stout. Others let the races kind of get into them, and that's their seasoning. And so, I'm with you that the 8 might be good down the line. Like the 3 even has a decent little pedigree. The Dam was a 5-time winner, earned $140,000, won her first couple starts, was a multiple stakes winner on the dirt, super solid sprinter, 4 siblings, all multiple winners. But Silva with the 2 and the 3 is 0 for the last 26 and only 6 for the last 80 with first-time starters. So the 2 and the 3, the 3 could be good down the line, but you look to Mac Robertson, who's obviously much better with first-time starters, so the 4 is probably very live. And someone like Van Winkle, who's super capable. They were 0 for 5 this year, but they do have a couple wins. I think they're 2 for their last 32, something like that. So, that's what – it was fun handicapping this race in that sense where you got to kind of pick, okay, am I going to go with proven trainers or am I going to go with maybe pedigree here?
Yes, and it makes this one extremely difficult. So, when in doubt, when the questions I have on this, I look for, especially with 2-year-olds, all right, who's making their second start? Mm-hmm. And so that's where I'm leaning towards the 5 and the 7
Me too. Yep.
On top, just because of the second start. The 5 took money, the Sampsons, so Curtis Sampson, the estate of him owns it. He was one of the Canterbury owners, and he passed away two weeks ago. So that's why it now is the estate of Curtis Sampson.
Yeah, really sad news.
So I'm leaning the 5 and the 7 there, but I'm also going to use the 4, 6, and the 8. Regarding your 3, the 2 works starting the end of July.
Yeah.
And then and along with it being it was a May full. So
just behind.
He just going to be, that one's just a little bit behind. I will say watch, maybe it's taking money, then potentially give that one more of an eye, but I'm looking at just the 4, 5, 6, 7, and I wanted to leave the 8 off, but I'm for the sake of my ticket, I am gonna go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but 5 and the 7 would be 5, 7, and then my third choice is going to be the 4, and then kind of the 6 and 8 kind of as my C's there, but I would just go use all 5 of them.
Yeah, we're super similar. I'll probably throw the 3 in just as one, but for me the 5 is definitely with the horse to beat, because she had a pretty fast start and she was right on the lead, and then she was second, and the 4 to 5 favorite just sort of was able to just kind of outrun her, and that was the eventual winner, Molly's Angel, and it wasn't that bad. I think she just sort of backed up late. She's got the seasoning in here. She actually ran well. I like that she got out of the gate, so I'm going to make her the top selection here. I do think the 4 is super logical. You have to use the 6 is on the ticket with me too, so I'm going to kind of start with 4, 5, 6 as my top 3. And then from there, I think I can probably get to getting the 3 and the 8 on the ticket. The 7 I can understand taking 2. It's just hard to get a gauge off of her because she broke so poorly, and then she just never had a shot after that. But the experience is huge in a race like this, as you mentioned. So hey, I wouldn't talk anyone off going all in this race or anything like that. But what's nice is that with these 2-year-olds, at least this is the start of the pick 5. You might be able to get an idea of a couple of these horses if they're live or not with the money, with the way where the money shows up.
Yep, that's always a factor in there to see who knows what. The on the 7 there, that the Francisco Bravo and Dale's Shinian, and with Lori Bravo as well. Just Dale's had some good horses at Canterbury Park and some champion horses, and maybe that horse took zero money in its debut, which is odd for one of his horses. So maybe the sign there was this thing was not ready to go. But the part on me that maybe this thing thinks this one might not be that great is not using one of the other jockeys and staying with Valenzuela. And he's been a newer guy at Canterbury, and he's also a quarter horser. So maybe he's good at getting him out of the gate, and he's going to get this one out of the gate and see what happens. See if she wants to keep going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe just a jock that, hey, let's at least get this horse in the mix here and in the race. As we move from race number 5 to race number 6, we have $7,500 claimers here. They're going to go 7.5 furlongs on the turf. These are ones who have not won a race since June 10th or never won 4 races. This is an interesting race. I'd imagine, horses like the 2, the 3 will take a good amount of money. The outside, the 9, Badgery Candy is probably going to take some money. The 4, Silvera. But I think you probably got to start at least from a talking point with probably the 2 and the 3 here. And I think the 3 is the most consistent. We were just talking about some of the connections too with Bravo here. So where do you start in the 6th?
So that's, yep. 2 and the 3 are going to be the ones that I use in there. I'm going to, with kind of some thoughts that I have otherwise in the sequence here, I needed to find a place to go shorter. And this was kind of one of the areas one of the races that I said, all right, well, it would be great to go 5 and 6 deep in every race, but you just can't unless you want to make a $65,000 ticket, right?
Yeah.
So I just based off kind of everything else on here, I do think the 2 and the 3 should be in the mix. The 3 is a min-bred, but has been facing open company, so I don't even worry about that anymore with that horse. And that's where Bravo's using Rye on this horse. So all right, that's his guy, and that makes the case. The 2, Time for Kisses, Butler, Sean Davis, 33% they win at. Butler's been giving Davis good rides, taking a pretty good drop from last time out. I believe that one probably fires, and if I had to choose between one of them to win, I would lead towards actually the 2 here.
Yeah.
Its turf pedigree is not good. Turf Tomlinson number is terrible, and I just think, all right, Dean's sticking around to ride this. Dean's riding this one again. I think this one has a chance. So
yeah,
I'm going with it. I could have to eat my words on this, but yeah, the 2 and 3 is where I'm going on this, and I'm just hoping to get through this leg, because the rest of these horses to me have huge question marks of stepping up in class, and horses that have been dirt sprinters now going on the turf long, and it's going to be tough for a lot of these horses that, all right, you can, the same question marks I have on the 2 and the 3, I can have 5 more question marks on about 5 or 6 of the other horses.
The most steady, the most consistent. Like Time for Kisses, like you said, the dam never turfed, but this gal is actually a half sibling to a horse named Spin Me a Kiss, who was a 4-time winner on the grass, was 4 for 13 with stakes place, and earned $225,000 on the grass. And then what happened with Time for Kisses, she was making her turf debut last time out. It was her second start off the layoff, so she was in a good spot to be ready to take a step forward from a physical and fitness level. And the horse right next to her broke poorly and bumped into her, and she got crossed over on, and she was backed up, and she was, almost 10 lengths out of it, a little farther back than she'd ever been. And I just don't think she knew what to do. She just kind of packed it in right then. She was just way out of it, never comfortable, and never got into it. And now you're going to go third off the long layoff, and you're going to drop in class with that nice turf pedigree. You mentioned Butler. You're just going to get a better trip. You're going to get a much better effort from Time for Kisses today in here. I think 2, 3 you have to use on all the tickets. The only other horse I'm going to mention is one who might be a sneaky horse that I might we'll see if I can play a few bucks to win on, depending on what price we get. That would be the 9. For me, I'm going to use 2, 3, and 9. I think she has enough tactical speed to where she can sit. Okay, I don't like the fact that she did not look good at all in her last couple starts, because she's had better form on the dirt prior to that, but she is just better overall on the grass. And getting back to the grass, I would not be shocked if she came back and showed up with an effort any one of those efforts like she had at Louisiana or the races at Fairgrounds prior to that, those would put her right there. So as long as she's around 5-1 or so, I can make a case for using her, but I can understand anyone that would just want to be using the 2-3 and be keying in on those because those are the safest in here, the most likely winners in this leg.
Nope, I'm the 9 was one kind of look at for those exact same reasons. Like those fairground races for 15,000, like nothing to be shy of there, especially winning one of those. The other one, if somebody has a different thought than you and I during this, another one that could be maybe a little bit tricky is the 10 that could get on front with Chad Lindsay, Stephanie Herb, like dropping has definitely showed speed. Tried to blow all the horses off their feet in the last run and just couldn't hold on. So maybe finds a little bit better spot and doesn't go as fast.
Yeah,
and maybe can hold on. But yeah, you're the case that you made on the 9. And yeah, I would think maybe the 10 a little bit. So if somebody has something else they love in it and they're looking for 2, like the 9 for sure. But if you're looking for something else, 10 would be, I think, the other one.
Yeah, and what's nice about the 2 and the 3 and the horses and even maybe the 9, all 3 of the horses is that they should be getting a good trip in here because it does look like the 10 if she breaks well and is able to sneak away from this group, she could be very, very tough. It just looks more likely that with the 1 City Gone Country, you'll probably get some speed there. It wouldn't be shocking to see Extra Gorgeous kind of closer out of a sprint race last time out. Little Be Quick is going to be really quick. Stretching out a little bit too, and then you have Distinct Approval who's got some pace. So I think it'll probably set up very well for the inside couple horses for the 2 and the 3 there, trying to save some ground maybe and make their late runs. We get to the 7th race, going 6 furlongs, maidens, 5,000s in here. So we have a couple horses that are actually cross-entered in a race on Monday and on Tuesday. The 1 Baby Gordita and the 10 Cowgirl Court. They're going to both be entered in this race and then in the Tuesday race going 5 furlongs. And it's pretty important which of them end up running if they both do, if neither one do, because they're both speedy. They both have a lot of pace. So even if you don't like them on a winning the race perspective, they could definitely have a say in how the race shapes up with their speed. So I think we kind of have to at least mention those 2 because they could, they could set this thing up and it could be going pretty quick if they're both in here.
Yeah, that's you have to pay attention and see what's going to go on, and if they draw in, then yeah, definitely have to be considered. Like it's one thing when you get races that it's not just what it is on paper. It's all right. What's the intention or what's the they're when they're choosing a race. All right, this one looks like a better chance. So all right, they're choosing this one for a reason. We saw that. Golly, a month ago when we were talking about a horse, and it was like parched or something. It was like the same exact race, but it was 2 different nights. And like, all right, well, if it doesn't choose this one and goes for the other one, rather than like the route, then they're choosing the sprint. And sure enough, the thing won the sprint. And
exactly, they made the right call.
Yeah. So this is a tough race. So that 10, the Cowgirl Court, I think. With the formerly Lori Keith, Lori Beeler, I think she's going to go to the front and try to hang on with this one. The 9 USS Lois, that horse, where was that?
Belterra
Park,
yeah.
I think is where we're at. So horse was 3.5 to 1, 12.5 maiden claimers, ran off in the post parade. So
just toss the race, really. It's just like easy toss.
Still went off at 3.5 to 1. Well, like was a non-factor ran last, but for some reason, whoever had faith in that horse didn't completely back off it. But now for Heath Lawrence to be bringing that here, I don't know much about Heath Lawrence, but he started popping up here at Canterbury in the last, I would say, week. I think he started coming around. Like maybe he just didn't have, maybe he scratched his horses last weekend, but he was definitely on like the past performances last week. So yeah, this horse was training at Keeneland and debuts at Belterra. Like the 12 to 1 is because nobody knows that connections the Heath Lawrence, but I think potentially something there with this horse that definitely I don't think 12 to 1, especially this Not a bunch of world beaters.
No, this is not the strongest race in the world. You don't need 5 angles on one of these horses to use them. You just need something at all. And what's nice about USS Lois is just there are just plenty of reasons for upside for this horse. You can just treat her really like a first time starter, because you said ran off in the post parade. There was a sloppy racetrack that day. You have a couple different excuses. Now you come up to Canterbury. So that, I mean, I'm not talking you off that one at a price, no doubt about it. I think that the horse who's probably the one to beat really is the 6, Angie Means Business. When I watched her race, I think it was better than what it looks on paper. She was starting to loom up, but she was chasing a lone speed horse, Pokegama, who we're going to see and talk about a little later. And she was chasing that lone speed. She moved all the way up into second early in the stretch, and then she tired and she faded. She ended up running 4th behind Lauren Lucas and Jacquelina. The cut back to 6 furlongs should give her a little more punch. She should be a little more fit, and it's going to be 3rd off the long layoff. She should be in the perfect spot. I think especially if Baby Gordita and Cowgirl Court are both in here, or the way this looks on paper with those two, maybe fairly surprised, showing some speed, and there are enough that it feels like a horse from off the pace will probably get a good trip. I thought that was, Angie Means Business. So again, a lot of it will come down to who's in here, but if she's, if she's 4-1, I'll make a win wager most likely, and she'll be for sure on my pick 5s. What do you do with the 3, Jacquelina?
If it beats me, it beats me. I'm gonna leave Jacquelina off. With horses like this, and a lot of them are proven losers. So all right, who's got some upside? The 8, Fairy Surprise for Reinickendorf.
Absolutely.
So, all right, how's the turf? Its dirt debut wasn't any good, but its turf races, maybe something clicks there. Its dirt works were really good. The June 5th work, all right, 46 out of the gate on 4 furlongs. All right, maybe the first start just was crap, and then all right, the turf shook something loose here. Now coming back to the dirt, and I think it's a big drop down. Turf racing usually gets a decent group of entries in there, so this is going to be a decent spot for this one, maybe to flash what it has.
Totally agree.
One other note I wanted just to share about Canterbury for what we're going to be looking through here. People are going to see maybe Chirinos has been picking it up and doing well at Canterbury. He got 3 days, so he's going to be out Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So if people see him, I wonder where he's at or why he's not on
good info
certain rides. He got a couple days from an incident last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe.
With the 6 Angie Means Business, you would assume he would have been aboard that one, and you pick up Quinones, who's been running really well all throughout the meet. One of the other just things I wanted to point out about the 7th race before we move to race number 8 is just interesting, the presence of Arietta on the 5 too. This horse just doesn't look great on paper, but you're taking a big drop down. Like you said, this is not a group of world beaters here at all. So just, you get a perennial top jockey over here who generally gives you a really good ride on your horses. If she breaks well, this might just be a whole different ball game for her. So I thought she was a little bit intriguing just from, hey, you get a very big jock jumping aboard there. Let's move.
Could bring that one to life. If anybody looks at the past performances, the 117-1 down there at Lone Star jumps out.
Right. It's
it's cold on the board.
It's hard not to look past that.
Was the 9th favorite in the daily doubles pool. So it was cold in the wind betting.
We moved to race number 8, 5 furlongs on the turf course here, maiden special weights, and the 4 Blue Lizzie and the 9 Let's Party Marty have raced against each other in the last couple, and they've both been separated by very, very little. And they both run really well in both those turf sprints at Canterbury. I don't really have knocks for either one of them. I could understand, everybody starting with them. I could understand if anybody was just using the 2 of them. I will include a couple others in here, but I think as far as who are the logical winners in this race, who look good on paper, those are 2 that I think you have to start with.
Yep, I'm going to fade with how my ticket's going to look. I'm putting my foot in the sand, and I'm gonna fade the 4.
Me too.
I know adding the blinkers gives me a little bit concerned, but I'm just, you know what? I don't love the horse. And
I prefer the 9.
Yeah, I'm going to prefer the 9, and then I'm going to throw on some other ones that are just pure wild cards here, trying to catch something.
Completely agree, because I think that's not a great way of you look at those two, just what you said, and I think the better way of playing it is just how we're going. You pick one of them, and then maybe use that one and a couple other prices, because it's never the best if you're going to just be using the 2 horses over and over and over again that you think are going to be the top betting choices. And this is a good race to maybe get a little separation, because I think a lot of people will look at those 2 and think, I could probably get through this race using 4 and 9. So, and Let's Party Marty had more excuses. I think that with Let's Party Marty getting hooked wide, take back, came on again, just missed a second. And then we have, like you said, I thought the 5, the first time starter, really interesting. The 7, first time on the grass, has really good speed. The 8's got a little grass pedigree. There are some other horses to include. Who were some of the other ones that you looked at?
So I've got the 9, but then I've also, the ones that I'm going to, my darts are going to be the 8, 10, and 3.
Nice.
The 8, bunch of good works coming into this. The first race of the year, so we'll see, is ready to go. But I do think, so Clinton Stewart's been all right here at Canterbury, using Arroyo. I assume he's been working this one in the morning. So that 35 gate workout with Cal, I remember, I think I was on Cowboy Cal for the Derby years and years and years ago, and that didn't turn out well. But
he was a nice horse, though. Yeah.
Dropping Chocolate. So the 10 horse has shown speed on the turf. Granted, that was at Canterbury in the 2-turn 1 mile races, but it's 22 and 46 on both of them. All right, there's some speed there, and obviously
he showed some sprint speed on the dirt even back in June. So he's
in a stakes race. They ended up in a freaking stakes race.
Yeah,
off of nothing really to go off, and so. The 15 to 1 is kind of surprising. I don't think it'll be there. It'll probably be 7 to 1, 8 to 1. But I think the 10, with Ryan, I think he's gonna get. There's enough question marks on other ones. I think he's gonna get a good enough chance on here that can get to the front and see what happens. Hold on. Then I got to go. The other one was going to be just a 3. I got to go with my girl Kelsey Haar after the pick 6 the other night.
Yeah.
So speed, it's going to go dropping from 6 furlongs on the dirt down to 5 furlongs on the turf. Maybe just goes out up front here and has a chance that. Yeah, 22 and 45 on the dirt. All right, let's see what happens. I'm willing to take a shot on that and throw it in. Just get some
with that kind of speed.
Enough other horses with that
absolutely.
Speed, go.
And for similar, I'm going to give a look to the 7, who has 9 other winning siblings. One of them on the grass, not a ton of grass pedigree, but she's got some speed. And just like you said, sometimes these 5 furlong turf races, you don't need a horse that's got a ton of pedigree. A lot of times the connections go to these races just because they're shorter. It's a little bit easier for them. They don't have to go quite as far. They know they got a really quick animal. So I thought this was a fun race. And like I said, you look on paper at first glance and you think, okay, it's 4-9. But I think that's the key to how you're going to approach it. You can't just play this race using only 4-9. You have to take a stand somewhere, throw a couple other prices in this 8th race. So we get to the 9th. We're going to try to close things out. $4,000 claimers in here. We see this condition on Monday and Tuesday. This is kind of a fun one. You get horses who have not won a race since August 17th of 2019, so last year, or which have started at Canterbury in 2020 and haven't finished 3rd or better. So you get some horses that are dropping or that are looking to wake up here. So you're not having a bunch of horses in the best of form. You have to dig a little, or you have to try to find horses that fit the connections nicely. So where do you go to close things out?
These horses all need a friend and a hug.
Yep.
I'm going with the 6, Sassy Seta. Just Canterbury wasn't great, but then ships down to Iowa. Sophie Doyle wins. And all right, now coming back here, dropping down in class again. I don't know about the distance. Gives me a little bit of concern. Maybe there's some breathing problem or something that this horse maybe just doesn't want 6. But I'm just leaning. There's enough questions, and the conditions speak for themselves. These horses, these horses have flaws. They're not perfect $4,000 claimers.
So she might not want to go 6. She's in much better form, has better speed. You're saying, you're weighing the options. I completely agree. That's the question you ask. Is 6 too far? But what's nice about where she's drawn is she's drawn towards the outside of the other speeds. So even if for some reason the one Paz the Pepper wants to gun from the inside, Sassy Sita might be able to kind of sit towards the outside, which is a much easier trip than being the inside of the speeds in here. I think she's a horse you got to use in your exotics too, no doubt about it. I wasn't really too cute in here. I think I'll probably play a ticket where I have 1, 4, 5, and 6. Those will probably be the horses I use. Mainly if, like you said, if this were 5 or 5.5, I'd feel a lot more confident in Sassy Sita. Because it's 6, I'm a little bit worried that maybe the 1 and the 6 do battle, and then it sets it up for the 4 or the 5, one of these horses that come from off the pace. And hey, the 4 and the 5 like to win races. They just haven't been winning a lot recently. But when you're in a spot like this against a bunch of other horses that don't want to win recently, it's a good spot for them to wake back up.
Yeah, so the 5 Sirita is going to be my second choice on this. And I will use that. I'm not going to solo Sassy just because of the questions. And just the other ones have enough question marks that, all right, the 5. Something, I don't know, 6 or 7 in the money at Canterbury out of 7 starts. But the layoff since February, it's
you're claiming for 15.
It's not like they were pointing this horse to this race.
No.
Maybe they saw the condition book and said, all right, let's fire away on this. This is our spot. But with the news out of Turf Paradise last week, maybe all right, we got to get this one ready to go and racing now because we have to find spots for it someplace. Like with the Arizona bred, like all right, if there's potentially not going to be a race in Arizona, let's put the $4,000 price tag on there. Let's go out there and see what happens. So that's why I'm going to use that. Just the 12 straight losses. Wins the Cactus Flower Stakes back in December 2018, and then since then hasn't been great. But even in December was finished 4th in the same $25,000 stakes race. So I don't think there's total flaws in the horse, so that's gonna be the one. At the distance, that horse is finished in the exact 9 out of 16 times. So all right, well maybe that one can get there. So I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna go 5, 6 there.
Yeah, that seems. I think we both can agree that it's probably a difficult race based just a lot on the condition to single a horse because we're talking about horses that are not winning a ton over this racetrack and not running well over this racetrack. So a unique condition, one that I like because it gets you a field like this and it gets some horses an opportunity to get into the winner's circle that might not with a different type condition. So on Monday,
I have one question on that,
please.
So I need you to help me with this one a little bit. And so that's an or scenario on that condition, right? Because you look at horses in there and take the 7, for example, right on by.
Yep.
So that horse finished second twice at Canterbury. So when it says 3rd or better.
So I think that one is under the condition of hasn't won a race since August 17th, 2019.
So he gets to choose that
condition. Yep,
condition.
it can be in either one of with the double conditions there. You can pick one or the other that you qualify for. So you get some horses for example, even like the Forest Spellwinder finished 3rd at Canterbury just a couple starts back. So wouldn't be falling under that condition, would be falling under the condition that she hasn't won in a year. So that's what opens this race up even more. You get horses that can qualify in multiple different ways with that or. That's good too. That's something that we don't. I always like talking about little things like that to bring them up because a lot of people out there have questions about them just like that. So the Monday sequence, I mean, it looks good. It doesn't look like a super chalky one. I think it looks like one that could definitely play up into the 1,000 or above sequence if you're able to beat some of the right horses in here. Give us 1 or 2 horses throughout the sequence that you want to make sure everybody throws in on their tickets.
Ooh, to throw in the tickets, I'm going to say that in race 8, the 10, the chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that would be the horse.
Drop a chocolate could be a nice little separator. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's the one to have some fun there. Just when the favorites have flaws with them, that looking to catch a price. And Rye on a 15-1 on the turf. He's one of the, with Loveberry moving his craft to Chicago. I think Rye is one of the top, if not the top, turf jockey at Canterbury. And even though in the five furlongs on the turf, I still think Rye right there can sit it pretty and do all right there. That the 10 would be that's my separator in the sequence.
Yep.
Or if I'm gonna make a little better, play around with a trifecta and try to catch something, I think the 10 would be the one I would play around with.
Dave, give the folks out there the information. Where can we follow you online on social media? And then we're going to pause and come back in just a minute, and we're going to talk about the Tuesday Pick 5. So if you're just listening in on Monday, hey, there's going to be some Tuesday Pick 5 analysis for you also.
Yeah, it's at SuperStats Dave. I'm on Twitter on that. I don't have a fans only account. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. So yeah, I'm out there on Twitter at SuperStats Dave, and yeah, we'll love interacting with people.
We'll be right back.
Thanks for having me on, Gino. Good luck, everyone.
We'll be right back with more Dave Handeland talking some Tuesday Canterbury Pick 5. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're just going to hear from one of our sponsors. We'll be right back on That's What G Said. A big thank you to Dave. We're going to pick back up with him and talk some Tuesday. We just wanted to let you know a little bit about OldSmokeClothing.com. I know you're a horse racing fan. You're listening to the horse racing analysis for Canterbury. Check this website out. They have T-shirts with horse names, polo shirts, hoodies, long sleeves, zip-ups, hats. We don't see a whole ton of places with horse racing gear, horse racing swag. So if you're someone who's a fan of 'Tis the Law, they have a bunch of different 'Tis the Law shirts. They have a hat up there. You could check out a trucker hat. Maybe you're a fan of Midnight B-Suit. Check out some of the Midnight B-Suit swag they have up there. They have all sorts of different, and I said, names, race tracks, big slogans, catchphrases, funny things, serious things. You can do custom designs there, and we're offering you a little incentive like always. Promo code GINO gets you free shipping. So that promo code GINO means you don't have to pay any shipping with your purchase there at OldSmokeClothing.com. OldSmokeClothing.com. Show that horse racing fan in you. Now we'll get to our Tuesday Canterbury Pick 5 with Dave. Back for some Tuesday Canterbury Pick 5 talk with Dave Handeland, and you probably just heard us talking about the Monday sequence. Now we jump into the Tuesday sequence, and again, Dave, with this one, we're going to start in race number 5, and we're going to start with some 2-year-olds. We've got Minnesota breds. They're going to go 6 furlongs in here, but this race is different than the one that we talked about yesterday in that these horses have a little more experience. This isn't a group of mainly first-time starters. We actually have 4 horses that all ran in that very same race on July the 21st. They were in the 5th there. So there's a few with experience. You still have a couple first-timers in here. Where do you end up going to kick off the Pick 5?
I'm gonna lean towards the 4, Kids Inheritance, Joe Burnt, Rye Eccleberry. Took some money versus the other ones last time, just not the greatest start, and kind of just grinded away for a 3rd place finish. Really was never really in the mix to win it or anything like that. But I think this one making the 2nd start for the Laufenbach Stables, 80,000 purchase back Keeneland sale. I think this one is probably the one I'm going to go with. Number 2, Runaway Ready. For Mac and with the Novagrasses, I think this one also is going to be, these ones are going to be threats where I think the 4, the 2, and the 7. Yep, 7's the other one. Fitzpatrick. I'm not getting. I got a little bit cute on the Monday card. Tuesday, I'm not getting as cute here with the babies. Where I'm going to go with
the 7 ran really well.
They're all making their 2nd time starts. None of the firsters really. The 3.
That would be the only one that jumped out to me too. Yeah.
Otherwise, that's where I'm going on. I'm going with the 2nd timers, the 2, the 4, and the 7.
Yep, those are the four horses you just mentioned are the four that I'll probably use to start. I'll probably play two different tickets, and I may play one where I actually single the 7, and I'll play maybe another where I go 2, 3, 4, 7. He just ran really, really well in his debut. He was in some traffic. He was in between horses. He held his spot really well in a tight spot, which is not an easy thing to do for a 2-year-old first-time starter where you're in between horses, down on the inside. It's a field of 10, and he moved through. He moved all the way up the challenge. He was a clear-cut second best that day. He was 4+ lengths in front of Kids Influence, who just did get away slowly and moved up late. So, yeah, I think for me it's the 7, no doubt about it. 7-3, 7-4, 3-2 are the horses who I'll use, and maybe just a single of Fitzpatrick, and maybe we can get some of that Fitz magic right off the bat in the Canterbury pick 5 in race number 5.
And you look at that one, you got since that race, that is, I believe, the only one that's had 2 works since that race.
Mm-hmm.
But the other ones have had 1 work, or one of them's had 1 work, and the other one hasn't had a published work. Runaway Ready since that race on August 3rd hasn't had a published work. The 4 has had 1 work, but Fitzpatrick's like, all right, maybe they weren't ever thinking they were going to win that first race, so turned around and got 2 works in here. And plus
the race, man, yep. This could be a whole different animal than we saw last time out looming up. Just could be much, much fitter than the rest of this group, and I like that outside, the draw towards the outside there too with Fitzpatrick. So, yeah.
Which is weird, a Minnesota bred that's
really cool breeding on this one.
You don't see Tappet pop up much in Minnesota's, so granddaddy on this one, but even that you don't see Tappets on Minnesota breds anywhere in the bloodline. So that's a very interesting one to look at here for that. And yeah, I think I would have no problem soloing that one.
Let's move to race number 6. We have 10,000 claimers, 6.5 furlongs the distance in here. These are fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, which have never won 2, or Minnesota breds, which have never won 3. So, I mean, just at first glance, when I look at this race on paper, it feels like there's a lot of early speed with Pokey Gama, who's quick, Party Lights, who's cross-entered for Tuesday and for Wednesday. If she goes in here, she's really quick. The 4 Champagne Affair, she's pretty quick. The 9 Sidasta, she's quick. The 10's not slow. She'll probably be more stalking from the outside. They could be going real quick in here early on.
They could be going really quick, which could be, you just never know. That could get dangerous, and we got some trouble here. These horses are hitting the emergency brake. I'm going to go with the 10 here.
Yep.
Slingshot Mistress, where you look, that horse was off for 6 months and comes back in an all right spot for 10,000 for Rye, but heck, like for being where it was, or going off at 27-1 its prior race, being off for 6 months, came back and took money and went off as the favorite in the last race. And that was a 2-turn mile. We're now cutting back to that 6.5. Maybe this is the right area. Can sit outside the speed a little bit, or maybe we'll just be in that spot. And I think the Wade Rarick, he doesn't have a ton of horses, but yeah, 6-24, 23%. I think this horse probably is in an all right spot here in this race. But yeah, like you said, there's a ton of speed set up for this, or in this race, that who knows, maybe something all hell breaks loose, and maybe Kelsey Har on the 7 horse keeps that horse, I don't know, gets back to the 6 furlongs here, which ran 3rd down at Oaklawn in the 10,000 claimer, and all right, maybe can sit off, let everything else collapse, and Kelsey goes wide and cleans up the mess that the others have created.
Yeah, everything you said with the 10, I completely agree to. I think that's the horse to beat. And the horses that I'm going to be using in here, really all 3 of them, I'm going to end up using 5, 7, and 10 in most of the exotics. And if you're looking to shorten up, you could probably shorten up to the 10 and maybe one other in here, because that's a horse who's going to get a great trip. I love cutting back from a mile to 6.5. It's just a great cutback, because you get so many sprinting horses who are running 5.5 or 6, and they just don't want to go that extra half furlong when it gets to 6.5. When you get that cutback from a mile, these horses are so fit, and the 10 just feels like they're going to get a perfect trip in here. The 7 with the blinkers on, Hashal, could maybe just get a little closer with the blinkers on and end up being in a better spot. And I actually think Arnold's Patsy, so the cutback from a mile and coming back from the grass, you can make a legitimate excuse, just put a line right through that last effort. And then I'm looking at the race 2 starts back on June the 16th. If she sits a trip just like that, where she's sitting a couple lengths off the pace, that race would be really competitive in here. She's not consistent, but that's why you'll get a better price. That's why she'll be 6 or 8 to 1 instead of 5 to 2, because she throws a clunker in here or there. But you can kind of go through them and see why. The race in April, that was at Tampa against Open 25 claimers. That's just a much tougher group. You can make an easy excuse there and put a line through it. And it was her first start since September, so she probably needed that race too. So yeah, I'm looking in on Arnold's Patsy, but I think the other two you mentioned really feel like they're going to get great trips. The 7 Hush Y'all and the 10 Slingshot Mistress.
And for people who are playing potentially multiple tickets, you can look at it 2 different ways. Like with these first 2 legs, maybe you solo that 7 in the first leg, and then you come back and you use the 5, 7, 10 here, and then maybe on your other ticket you do use multiple horses in that first race, and then you solo the 10 here, and you
absolutely
hope to be right on one of them. Maybe you're right on if it goes 7, 10. Then you have a $1 ticket alive going to the final 3 legs. And
absolutely,
worst cases to be in.
Mm-hmm. That's how I'm playing a lot of my tickets, just like that. It just give you an opportunity if it's either the shorter price horses that you like or your stronger opinions are right. You want to give then you don't have to waste other horses all throughout that way. It's just a way to build your tickets as we move to race number 7. So we have another one of these claiming races where there are a couple ways to qualify. We've got the 3-year-olds and up, which have not won 2 races since May 18th, or which have never won 4 races, and they're going to go a mile on the turf course here. I thought this was a really fun race to handicap. You got a big field going the mile on the turf course here, and this is another race where I think on paper it looks like the 4 Shades of Victory is pretty quick. The 5 Most Amusing has been sprinting on the dirt, showing speed. I'd imagine he's going to be right on the lead. Outrun the Posse is never too far out of it. Executive Decree is another one who's been showing speed, sprinting on the dirt, and now will be going long. They're pretty quick. So Minnesota Miracle is not exactly slow. I think he'll probably end up, sitting off a bit in this spot, but another race that could go pretty quick early on.
Could go very quick. The Canterbury turf course has been playing pretty fair this year, where it's not like, all right, you need to use speed here, or it's speed is dying and it's all closers. It's been running extremely fair, which makes everything which makes it fun when you're coming up to opinions where you don't need the inside info of, hey, I play Canterbury all the time. If your horse isn't in the top 3.
You got no shot.
You have no chance.
And in the other way, some turf courses are the other way too, where it's like if you're on the front end, you have no shot. Everything is winning down the middle of the racetrack with these like late big sweeping moves. It's been a really, really fair racetrack, in particular the turf course. It's a good point. And like you said, it makes a race like this fun because you look at it and you go, okay, if there is an honest pace, it should set up for some of these stalkers, closers. A couple to me that I look at are the 2 and the 8. Great Sky and Scattered Cash, who were able to beat Scattered Cash was able to beat Outrun the Posse last time out. Great Sky was just defeated by Outrun the Posse, but they sort of feel if the race unfolds how I think it is going to on paper, they feel like they're going to be in a really nice spot sitting behind those speed.
So behind the speed and Pounce, yeah, I have no issue with either of them. Like my top pick in this is going to be Minnesota Miracle because I don't know. You see it's a mid-bred, but it won at 25,000 open, and it won there. So now they're cutting it in half and dropping down again. Like, all right, well, if they could win there, then they should be able to be in a pretty good spot here. So the 3 is gonna be my pick. But yeah, the Great Sky definitely looked at that with getting back to the turf. Like Arietta had success with that horse at Canterbury last year on the turf, like won at 16,000, won a couple times. And yeah, Diodoro, he's not the top of the trainer standings at Canterbury this year, but it's mainly due to the supply that he has there, where he's still winning at 27%. He's just not firing 8 horses in a race car like he was the previous years. So when you see him not at the top of the trainer standing, it's based off of quantity, but the quality and what he's sending out there is doing well. So yeah, the 2, 3, and then like you said, the 8 there. I'll run the posse. I'm as the 6. I'm tossing that. I'm not using it. If it beats me, it beats me. And yeah, I think that was going to be it. That's where I go on there. I'm not getting overly cute, but yeah, the case that you made for the 8, and then yeah, I'm going to kind of depend on the 3. The other one, I guess, maybe is the 4. Speed, but yeah, like you said, this is another one where it could get messy. But yeah, this horse last year was racing at Del Mar and Santa Anita, and
it was in stakes races. Yeah, and this is a couple horses that I kind of sort of treat as wild cards, and if I'm playing one of those tickets where I've singled early on, I'll probably be able to use a couple extras in here, and I'll throw in maybe the one Tyler's Tech on a ticket just as a wild card who comes in for Brinson, and he's got some competitive races at Turf Paradise. You put the blinkers on. Yeah, he hasn't raced since March. That's definitely not a positive, but this is a barn who can get him ready to fire, and he could just be sitting in a good spot saving all the ground from the rail. And then maybe the 9, just because Sweeping Edge hasn't been as good on the grass, but he's just a better horse now since Broberg's taken over. He's in the best form of his career right now, where he's rattled off, 3 of his last 4 victories. So this would be the time to maybe transfer the form over to the grass. And I could see flopping Sweeping Edge in on a ticket or 2 here in race number 7.
Yep.
Let's get to the 8.
Good.
We got Minnesota breds, fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and upwards, 5 furlongs the distance. And so this was that other race. We talked about a race on Monday in the pick 5 sequence that includes Cowgirl Court and Baby Gordita. They're both entered in this race too. And I think this race is probably even a better spot for the both of them. Just from a distance standpoint, I think especially for Cowgirl Court going 5 furlongs, she probably has a better shot trying to hang on there than trying to go 6 furlongs. But again, they're keys to this race because they have speed. And they should be involved throughout, and in particular a horse like Cowgirl Court. But there's a pretty good amount of other speed in here too. Again, like the 9 Cat Song. I was pretty impressed with Warren's Wish. I thought when she dropped down to the maiden 75 level, that she ran pretty well when she was second behind the heavier favorite that day. I think she'll end up sitting a really good spot since they're cutting back in here. There's a couple others that may be quicker, and I could just see her maybe stalking and pouncing.
Yep, this race for me goes through the 2 Mac horses, the 3 and the 3 and the 9.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know. Mac Robertson wins at Canterbury, and with Minbreds, he is just a machine that pumps out stuff. So like that 9 wasn't the favorite, but was damn near the favorite. Out coming off good works, and then threw out a dud at 25,000 maiden claimers, and now they're dropping. The thing that surprises me is it seems like when Max drop into maiden claiming levels that all right, these are clearly not his top stock.
Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like emptying out.
30% winning percentage.
Yeah,
wow, that like completely.
It doesn't feel like it adds up, but it does. Yeah. The barn just continues to crunch out winners. Yeah, the 9. Then see, just not knowing what we're going to see with the 4 and the 6. What's nice is like we'll obviously know by Tuesday because we'll have seen them run on Monday if they're in this race. I would give them a little bit of a look just because they're horses you maybe want to toss in with their speed. I'll start with the 3. I completely agree with you. I think the 9. I would prefer the Mac horses anyways. The 3 and the 9 if I needed to. The one sort of price that I would throw in is maybe the 8 Hot Habanero. She faced better. She was a step slow, and then she kind of moved up into a spot where she wasn't too far out of it. She looked okay for a second, and then she got outrun. And now you drop again in class, and you cut back. It was just her first start. If she sort of breaks and is in that same spot again softer, maybe she can just kind of fall into a good trip at a big price and hit the board, or maybe shock someone in his pick 5 and really spice it up. But I think we both sort of feel like this race really goes through Mac, right?
Yep, I think this race goes through Mac. The concern I have, so like, yeah, the 3 is probably the one that I would like the most. The thing that worries about me, I guess, on that 8 along with the 9 is like, so that main claiming race, 25,000, like that only had 5 entries, and these horses were no factor at all, which is now potentially we'll see if there's what the defections do or what ends up going with that. But all of a sudden you get a 9-horse race, and I know it's like when I look at the low levels of main claiming, and horses maybe don't like to pass. And somebody once said it at Santa Anita, and it really stuck with me. Of like, one thing about like main claimers is they just don't. Some of them just don't like to pass.
They've gotten used to that dirt kicking in their face, getting behind horses, and you just kind of become a pack animal. You start backing up. You get to the front and back up, and you think that's sort of what you're supposed to do instead of the other way around. You're right. You're right with the 9 cat song, and that's what I didn't. This is a negative for both the 8 and the 9, and so this is another situation where, hey, I wouldn't talk somebody off if they wanted to single the 3, who really does look like the more logical, proven, the most likely winner of this race. Broke on top, got pressed by the rival to the outside, and this horse was second best, just couldn't hold off a late challenge. I think the key is the trip, but Arroyo's been capable, and as long as this filly is just in maybe sitting third, she should be pretty tough in here.
Yes, no, I totally agree. The interesting thing, so with like the 6, Arietta, so that's the one that's cross-entered on Monday. So Monday, Arietta is on a 15-1 horse with a guy that he, I believe, must have ran with down in Fonder. I think he's got some back with him with Esteban Martinez, but it's not like there's a big connection there. And on the Monday race, Beeler is using his wife, Lori Beeler, as the jockey, where for the Tuesday race, he's getting Arietta, which
that is interesting.
Former jockey champion. So that I'll say based on that, the jockey upgrade based off of the past history on that, but choosing Arietta over the wife. So that's a hey honey discussion.
I know, huh? It's like, hey, yeah.
Hey, sweetheart,
there's got to be something behind the story there. Yeah. That's funny. That's a good point. I love that's what's nice when you and Brian are on too, because there's all sorts of, I can handicap everything on the paper, and I think a lot of other people can too, but you know the connections, and you know these little unique things about the horses, the owners, the trainers, where the jockeys, where they've come from, things like that maybe the average person doesn't know, and just the little tidbits like that always fun and nice to have. So we got our fun condition again in race number 9. We got the 3-year-olds and up, which have not won a race since August the 18th, so they haven't won in a year, or they've started at Canterbury in 2020 and they haven't hit the board. So one of those 2 ways to qualify for this race. And I really like the 7 in here quite a bit, Masterful Stride, because I'm looking at the conditions of this race, and he fits really well in that he's run at Canterbury and he's run 4th. And his 4th last time out was a better than it looks 4th. He had a slow start. He was last. Then he makes a move on the outside, a 4-wide move from the back of the pack, 4 and then 5 wide, all the way up to challenge to take the lead, 3 wide at the top of the lane, and then he flattened out a little bit. He just made that big wide move. It was going 6.5 furlongs. Now you're going to cut back to 6 furlongs. He actually ran really well, finishing 4th. The way his conditions are, he didn't hit the board, so he's got 3 consecutive 4th place efforts where he hasn't been getting trounced. He's been in the races and like that one too. So the 6 is very logical. The 1's taking a big drop down in class for Broberg. The 4's another one who's dropping off of claims. They're probably some of the more logical horses in here. Broberg's got 2. So where do you go in the 9th?
So I was leaning towards both Brobergs is where I'm going with. The 1, Hattie's Jewel, along with the other one is the 5. I like the 1 better, but when you got the same trainer entering 2, see it happen with Chad Brown. It seems a lot where the other one won, not the one that you're thinking of.
And the other one's got Rye too, right?
Yep, the other one in this scenario is the 5, and it's got Rye. And yeah, look at that thing down at Remington was versus Oklahoma Breds was running allowance races 3 back for 46,000, and he's kind of zigzagged that one all around. But I'm leaning towards the Brobergs there along with your 7.
Yep.
Would be where I would go there.
Yeah, the Brobergs are the logicals. The 1-5, the 7 Master Strider I mentioned. Azarak would be going third off the bench, and he's coming out of productive races. He's been behind Mast and Royal Privacy recently, and I just didn't know what to do with the 4. I never like when we talked about things like this all the time with you on here. I never like it when you claim for 10 and then you drop in for 7,500 right away, and then you don't run well, and then immediately now you're dropping in for 4,000. Could he win? Absolutely, but it doesn't make you feel confident when that's the pattern right off of the claim.
Yeah, that's when there's smoke. Sometimes there's fire.
Mm-hmm.
Golly, you play. There was a race this weekend at Saratoga.
All 8.
It was like. Right, that was the 10 horse that had was taking 2 massive drops and didn't run a lick.
Okay, see, I thought we were talking about the race where all 8 horses got claimed. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah, then that happened too.
Which was bizarre.
All 8 horses got claimed.
But no, you take these massive. It's the drop. It's just you have to have sort of a reason for the drop, or the spot of the drop has to make sense. Like back to a claim level is fine, but when you're this is like you said, this is a horse who was against first level allowance and allowance company at Sam Houston, and not that long ago was competitive there. And now I think they're just assuming, hey, maybe someone will take this one off our hands. Maybe the real big drop in class can wake them up. They're hoping, they're kind of keeping their fingers crossed. Whereas it looks like there are others in here that are well meant. I'd much prefer the Brobergs and the 6 and the 7. If you're looking for the logical contenders in here. So yeah, a couple really fun pick 5 sequences that we talked about. Give us 1 or 2 horses throughout the Tuesday pick 5 that you really like.
Who should the public use to make sure that they use out of the sequence? Golly, I'm gonna say, it's not sexy by any means, but I'm gonna say that. It's that 10 horse
in the 7.
Yeah.
I think it could be a good single there.
That's the most likely winner between the 2 days that we did. I think that's maybe the most likely winner of the 2 days. So that obviously means I've just completely jinxed it, so it won't win. So that either means Minnesota Miracle is going to win.
Expect the most troubled trip ever, and then come running on for second. Yeah.
Yep. So I just completely dug my own grave with that one. So yeah, that would be. The 10 is where I would go on that. Is that if somebody's trying to stay slim in one of the legs, that's probably the one. Otherwise, that 7 in the first leg of the pick 5 would be. I think. Who knows? Or you just say, you know what? I'm going to go 7, 10, and then bombs away. And you throw 5 and 6.
Yeah.
The next 3 races, and you create yourself a $60 ticket. You hope to hang on and then catch a price.
Absolutely.
Or 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's not a bad approach at all. And that's one thing that's great about these. I know you're the similar. There's no template. We're not coming out here going, hey, every day I'm going to go 3 by 3 by 3 by 3, or I'm going to go single by 2 by. It's always different. It's always fine to play a few tickets in. Sometimes it's for me, a lot of the times when I hit, it'll be like my one little small saver backup ticket that I would have never thought was going to hit. Where I just went like all in one leg and then singled a lot of my my stronger opinions, and that one hits because the one race that you just didn't really like, you spread out in. So yeah, these were fun. These were fun Monday, Tuesday cards to discuss with you. And I mean, you're swinging a hot bat right now, so hopefully we can keep it up going this week after your nice scores last week. Let the folks who are listening on Tuesday know if they want to chat with you out there, if they want to follow along. Where can we find you on Twitter?
Yeah, my name. It's at Superstats Dave on Twitter. I love interacting with people. I will say on Wednesday, so we did the Monday, Tuesday cards. On Wednesday is like the Minnesota Made Day at Canterbury. And the late pick 5, I think, consists of 5 stakes races.
Oh, cool.
And it's kind of some Minnesota heavy hitters. I believe the last race of the day, that Runaway Ready is in there, who's
cool.
Stretching out kind of mile and 16th, I believe, but Monday, or the Wednesday card is going to be a mix of it's 5 stakes races, and then you got some dirt and some turf in there. So we did a couple of very interesting cards, and there's a lot of quality in the Wednesday late pick 5 as well. So it's a good week to be playing Canterbury. I think the weather is going to be good all week. So it should be very good. It's sad. It's mid to August here, and we're in the final month. Seems like we were delayed getting to it, and then the summer is just flown by.
It really has. It has flown by. So yeah, we'll have to get you on at least one more time before the Canterbury meet ends. Dave, thank you so much, man. I always have a blast talking with you. And if some of the folks missed the Monday stuff at the very beginning of Monday, we also chatted a little bit about a nice pick 6 score you had over the week, and we chatted a little NBA basketball, gave some thoughts on that too. So love when we can talk all sorts of different things, and I always have a blast talking to you. Look forward to bringing you back again.
Nope, sounds good. Hey, I needed to get your opinion on something. What did you think of the Randy Orton Ric Flair interaction this week?
Oh, so Randy's been great, and I know they didn't want to. They were put in a tough spot, I'm sure, because they don't want to see Ric Flair taking any bumps. They don't want to actually see it, so they had to to make the lights go out and black it out there. But I like what Orton's doing. I think it was great, and Flair he was phenomenal. That would. He can get those tears anytime he wants, and he instantly can turn from the guy that people have been hating the last couple months to the guy that everybody feels bad for, and that just shows you what an incredible performer he is. And I've not always been a Randy Orton guy. He's someone who can go through the motions sometimes, and you could tell when he's really cares about something and when he doesn't. He cares about this. He's into this with Flair. This was a good storyline. It makes me more excited for the SummerSlam match with Drew. And Flair is just phenomenal. It was great.
Yeah, that was with going into the stories as deep as they did, and like touchy stuff on that, and for where they push boundaries. Like think about what they've done with Orton here in the last 6 months with the whole Edge storyline, and like they put him in, like, compared to like the depth of some of the other guys that they don't go into. They put Orton in some pretty good spots, but that whole thing with him and Flair at the end of the Raw last Monday was very, very interesting to watch. It was done very well.
Agree. It's compelling, and we can all critique WWF, and Vince is getting a little older, and they do a lot of goofy, weird things sometimes. But I think a lot of people have been hard on them in the last 6 months or so with the pandemic and the ratings and stuff going down. One thing that not enough people are talking about is how good Randy's been. This has been a really great, just like you said, they've done a good job building the stories for him, setting it up for him. It's all been really good, and he feels like a big star. I would not be shocked if he beats Drew and wins that title and has a little run with it as the heel and makes Drew chase him or someone chase him. And yeah, I mean, I'm pumped. We'll I got to have you on.
Could you
after.
Imagine that with a crowd? Had this been pre-pandemic?
Oh, with Flair in there
in a crowd, like.
People would be crying.
Where Flair is loved, and like what kind of reaction what kind of pop would have happened?
If you're in Charlotte, could you imagine, or somewhere like that? Oh yeah, that would be unbelievable. So it's a bummer, and we're hearing that they're going to change up the location now for SummerSlam, so they won't be in the same spot that they've been over and over and over again. They're going to have some virtual fans, I think, in the mix too. But yeah, we'll do. I've been doing a lot of those old wrestling rewatches, so when I'll touch base with you, and we'll pick an old pay-per-view that you like one time, and we'll watch it, and we'll come back on here and recap it and talk some wrestling.
Would love to do that. That would be awesome.
Awesome. Dave, man, I really appreciate it. Dave Handeland, have a blast talking with you. Good luck this week. Let's keep the good mojo rolling from your big score last week. And man, Canterbury, as you said, we talked Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday's a big day also, so we're going to be focusing in on Canterbury all this week.
Sounds good. Good talking with you, Gino. Good luck to everybody out there playing. Hopefully everybody's cashing tickets, because with the 10% takeout, there's enough for everybody.
There we go. We all get a little bite at the apple. Don't go anywhere, folks. We will be right back with much more on That's What She Said. We are back. It is the summer. It's the SummerSlam season. We just recapped SummerSlam 1994, and now we're going to head back 5 years earlier to 1989. Look at me. I can do math. We got Darin Zoccali. We got Andrew Champagne. I almost combined their names into like a Dandrew right there as I was introducing the two of them. But Andrew, this was your pick, 89 SummerSlam. And I got to say, we're going to laugh, I'm sure, and joke a lot about Zeus and everything with No Holds Barred and the main event tag match. But the first hour to hour and a half of this show, I really, really enjoyed. There was not a lot of bad there. And towards the end, there's a couple things that I could have lived without. And the Zeus stuff is obviously like hate watch funny. But even in that and how bad Zeus is, the crowd is insane. And they're really hot for the angle. They love the angle. And I remember as a kid being terrified of Zeus. Really thinking that, man, like Hulk can't make an impact. His punches do nothing to this guy. So, 3-year-old me at the time, 2.5-year-old, 3-year-old me, and my cousin who was 5 watching this, I mean, we were terrified of Zeus. Kids were. So I guess in some way it sort of worked. But give us your overall thoughts. You picked this show. What did you think on your rewatch, Andrew? And then we'll get to DZ.
First of all, I have been called far worse than Dandrew, so it wouldn't have offended me in the slightest, although I can't speak for Darin. So, no, I like this show. This is one of my all-time favorite SummerSlams, not just for the hate watch factor of the main event. There are several genuinely great undercard matches on this show. Kicking things off with the opener with the Hart Foundation against the Brainbusters, a really good 6-man tag match with the Rockers, the Rougeaus, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, all really good workers. The Ultimate Warrior had his best match to date in this match, and it was a phenomenal match. There are some really good promos, and there are some good Easter eggs if you know where to look. I got to tell you, though, guys, I've got one big gripe with this show on the WWE Network, and I'm going to get it out in the open right now. One of the most infamous bloopers in WWF, WWE history comes on this show, and they edited it out on the WWE Network. There is a promo backstage with Gene Okerlund, Rick Rude, and Bobby Heenan, and the SummerSlam sign falls down. It is on YouTube. It is hysterical. It is not, however, on the WWE Network's version of this show, and I am irate because as I rewatched this show, I was waiting for it. I was looking. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And then they finally air the Rude promo, and it's the second take. I was pissed.
The what we see right off the bat in this show too, there's and we'll get into it, the little intro promo with there's just like wrestler, random person riding a bike, wrestler, random person swimming, little kid eating ice cream, wrestler. It's really funny. You could tell this was right when, we're going to promote No Holds Barred, the movie. This is when WWE and Vince McMahon delved into movies for the first time. And so they're getting a little goofy with some of their toys and the way they're editing things. But what was another thing, Darin, that was kind of like an overarching theme, at least to me, of this show was you got a lot of guys on this particular SummerSlam that we saw as the competitors for many years. You got the Brainbusters, 2 of the 4 Horsemen. You got Dusty Rhodes, who's on there. You got Garvin, who's also in the mix too. So, I mean, we're talking about a couple major players from NWA who are now over here in WWF.
Yeah, it's a cool show for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them. I touched upon the fact that I was fortunate enough to be at this show. I think I was 6 years old. One thing I remember before the first match, being in the arena, I actually thought as a kid, I thought this match was for the belts, the first match. And we'll get into why it wasn't as we get to it. But I remember being so demoralized by the result because as we talked about, I was a huge Bret Hart guy. And I didn't find out, I can't even remember when, probably like years and years later, that this match wasn't even for the titles. So it almost ruined my entire experience because I was so upset that Bret didn't win the belts and didn't even realize that even if he won, they wouldn't have won the titles. I agree with a lot of the stuff that Andrew said. I forgot how good this match was that the Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude had. It's enjoyable. The crowd is hot for a lot of this stuff. The first match, they go nuts with a couple of things. The Dusty match, they go nuts for him, obviously. Maybe there's 1 or 2 matches that I could have done without to shorten it a little bit if I had to complain about it. But you got a lot of talent on here. You got a lot of big names. The Zeus part is what it is, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at length. But I would say this was a very solid pay-per-view. And I do remember enjoying it quite a bit in person as well.
Yeah, this was better than I was expecting it to be because, you just kind of glance when we talk about what show we're going to do and we look through what the card is and we think, okay, maybe this is – but this is another one of those fun ones when you look through the card and you start going down and you go, okay, so we got – 2 of the 4 Horsemen and Bret the Hitman Hart and the Hart Foundation, a really classic team in the first match. We've got, Dusty Rhodes and the Honky Tonk, who are classic characters. We got Mr. Perfect here. We got a great match from Ultimate Warrior. We got Shawn Michaels here with the Rockers and Tito. There are a lot of big stars here, whether they weren't quite all big stars at the time, but a lot of our friends from this really classic era. And this era, generally, I just get that nostalgic, warm feeling when I watch them, whether it be the theme music or whatever it is. I don't know, sometimes the quality of a 94 show might be better than an 89 show, but there's just something about watching them from this like 87 through 92 range where it just, I don't know, it brings you back to being a kid and it feels a little bit better than it probably even is. But I like this show quite a bit. I didn't think there were a lot of down parts until we get to the bottom, and let's kind of get right into it. We are SummerSlam 1989. Tony Schiavone, even another NWA, Schiavone, the Brainbusters, Dusty Rhodes, Ronnie Garvin. This is at a time when Vince and Crockett are going back and forth, doing their counter programming, creating pay-per-views to, compete with the other. And we got Tony and Jesse at commentary. This was in Tony Schiavone's short-lived WWF run. I think at the beginning he's a little nervous, and throughout he has a couple botches, swings and misses, things that he's a little goofy. But for the most part, I thought he was okay. He's in there with a tough competitor with Jesse. So it's like if you throw anything out there that's not sharp, Jesse is going to eat you alive. And he does it a few times. I know Andrew's going to point to one of them later, which is just great. And
all-time classic, and I'm going to love going through it.
Oh, it's great. And Jesse tells Tony to stay in line and calls Tony the reason why Bobby the Brain isn't on the air right now. They run down the card, and we get that montage that I mentioned. It's so bizarre. So we see a wrestler in the ring, and then they'll cut to some random person in their everyday life with like a summertime activity. Jimmy Snuka, people jumping in a pool. Ted DiBiase, person on bike. Hart Foundation, woman in convertible. Brainbusters, kid eating a chocolate-dipped ice cream. Ultimate Warrior, woman on beach. Rick Rude, softball game. Twin Towers, kid in playground. Demolition, guy playing golf. Dusty Rhodes, someone water skiing. Honky Tonk Man, kid on a slide. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, kid on swings. Macho Man, girl eating watermelon. Hulk Hogan, then the SummerSlam logo. It was just so funny. I laughed. I watched it a few different times just so I could get the correct order there. And we get a nice tag to start out. The action is really good. The one thing, and you pointed at it a little bit, Darin, and so I'll get to you to start with this match, is that if the Brainbusters are going to win this match anyways, why is it not for the titles? Who the hell cares? We don't know. Just tell us it's going to be for the titles now, and they're not going to lose anyways. It doesn't matter. It just seems so weird to point that stipulation out, to make a big deal about how the fact they signed this match before the belts, they had the belts, and Tony and Jesse had that little shtick about whether or not they would put up the belts if they could. And I don't know. You're hearing all this, and you're going to assume that the Hart Foundation wins based on all that. It just seemed like an unnecessary extra little bit for this match, and that was the only thing that really rubbed me the wrong way. Otherwise, this was a really good tag match between 4 guys who can work. 3 are really good workers, and 1 really knows his role.
Yeah, the one thing that I really enjoyed about this match is that a lot of times in these tag matches that we saw in some of the spots, Bret really carried the match. And I'm not saying that Bret didn't carry parts of this match, because of course he did. But in working with Blanchard and Arn Anderson, he didn't have to work as hard to do it. And it shows in the quality of the match and because of the quality of his opponents. So I really did enjoy that element of the match. The storyline, yeah. So basically what happened was Demolition, who had won the belts from Strikeforce back at WrestleMania 4, had held the belts for basically a year and a half. And they actually lost the belts on a Saturday Night Main Event just shortly before this, which I think was aired actually like 2 weeks after it actually took place, in a 2 out of 3 falls match. So they basically went with the storyline that because the match was signed before the belt, before the Brainbusters won the belts, that the match didn't have to be for the title. So that was kind of the storyline. And the only thing I could come up with, and I'm probably giving the WWE too much credit back then, is that at this point in time, a big part of the storyline for the Hart Foundation was they had been chasing the belts for a while. They lost the belts to Strikeforce in the fall of '87, and they were kind of chasing Demolition. And then, the Brainbusters are able to get their hands on the belts before the Harts do. And that kind of is a theme all the way up until they finally win the belts at SummerSlam 1990, where they're on the chase. And maybe that's a part of it. I don't know if Vince was creative enough back then to actually think about that, but I guess you could take that, that aspect of it. The match itself, I thought was great. 4 and change on the star meter for me. The beginning parts of the match, Hart Foundation essentially dominated with, the Brainbusters getting in a few spots. So even with the loss, they were able to protect the Hart Foundation that way. There's a cool double arm toss that Brett does that the crowd goes nuts with, where it probably wasn't even a difficult move for him, but it looked so cool when he flipped, both Arn and Blanchard backwards over, and it was just a cool spot.
Like an arm drag kind of a thing. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. It was a cool spot. It's something that I didn't even remember, and you don't really see that move too often, like a double arm drag kind of reverse thing. There's quite a few times that you think that the Hart Foundation are going to win. And I almost felt like the crowd probably thought that the belts were on the line because they were really hot for this match, especially at the times where it looked like the Harts were going to go over. The ending, the finish kind of irked me a little because, Brett gets beat with a double axe handle to the back, like when he's going for a pinfall. Okay. One thing that I will say, and then I'll pass it off to Andrew, I don't want to ramble too much, is that one thing the announcers did not pick up here. They were complaining that the legal man did not get the cover at the end of the match, and they were kind of going on and on about that. And it was unfortunate that they missed what Arn Anderson did, because after he hits him with the axe handle and throws Tully out of the ring and goes for the cover, he takes Brett's arm and covers his head with it. So the ref cannot see who's actually making the cover for the Brainbusters. And it was actually a really cool spot. And neither Jesse or Tony picked up on it. And they were just kind of like beside themselves that the wrong man, got the win, like the wasn't the legal man. But Arn actually did a great job of that spot where he hit his head underneath his arm and Brett's arm when he got the cover, which did not allow the ref to notice that it was a different Brainbuster in the ring. And it would have been better if Jesse, or even Shivani had picked up on it, but unfortunately they didn't. But other than that, thoroughly enjoyed it. Great opener for the pay-per-view.
Okay, all-time dad joke coming up here, guys. If they were beside themselves, did that mean there were 2 of them?
The doinks.
Yep, pretty much. So anyway, I really like this match. It doesn't make any sense why this match wasn't for the title. They tried to retcon it. Didn't really sit well with me. The move I'm going to point out with Brett, Darin, you mentioned that double arm drag thing that he did. I really liked the body slam that he did with the hammerlock still cinched in. That was probably a really simple move, but it looks brutal, and Arn sells it like he's just had his arm ripped out of his socket. That's such a simple move, and I wonder why more big guys don't do that now. That could be a real legitimate transition move for someone in NXT if they wanted to bring that back, because it looks deadly, and it's probably a really safe move to do if you know what you're doing. Jesse gets in a really good line on Neidhart saying, "This guy don't play with a full deck." And then you get the Weasel chants for Heenan. That's really cool. The part of this match that I like the most, though, Brett and Tully tell a story with Brett in this routine bridge that looks like a rest hold and would be treated like a rest hold with just about anybody else. But Jesse sells it hard, talking about the neck strength that Bret Hart has not going down. And it makes it such a convincing story to where Tully's trying to push him down, and Brett's using his amateur skills to keep himself in a position where he's not on the mat. That was a really cool little spot, and this is something that I'm going to harp on again in the six-man match later on in this show. For one thing, it's a wonder how bad the tag division would get in just 3 or 4 years from now, because the tag division here in 1989, surprisingly loaded. You had the Hearts, you had the Brainbusters, you had the Rockers, you had the Rougeaus, you had a couple of other teams that could potentially be tag title contenders that were fun to watch. It was a good time for the tag teams. And the thing that I liked about the way they booked these matches was they didn't try to overbook the matches or overfill the matches. Look, I understand wrestling's changed in 31 years. I get it. You watch a tag title match now, like, for instance, something in AEW with the Young Bucks, and I like the Young Bucks a lot. I think they're fantastic. If every move is a big move, no move is a big move. There was so much psychology in all of these matches, and I loved it because they didn't have to do too much to tell an effective story. And these were some of the guys who wound up being some of the best in the history of the sport at doing what they were doing. So I wasn't crazy about the finish, but I get where they were going. The Hart Foundation didn't lose anything in defeat, obviously. They stayed in the chase. They stayed over. This was really cool. Great opener. Really enjoyed it. And this was one of the reasons I picked the show.
Jesse says the anvil is strange and he doesn't play with a full deck. He actually uses that full deck comment twice in the evening. He says it about Warrior again later on.
Well, it fits with him too.
Yeah, it does. As I can say, it's fitting. So then Tony makes that snarky comment and he says he doesn't blame Bobby for not putting up the titles, and Jesse won't have it. He says, how can you blame him for not putting up the titles when they didn't have him in the first place? And Jesse said, well, they could just make it a title match. And Jesse says, would you do that? And Tony pauses, and I think I would. Jesse says, oh, yeah, right. Now I've heard everything, Shabani. So we get Weasel chants from the crowd. Brett hits that cool double arm drag. And Bobby's trying to rally the troops outside the ring. He tells the Busters not to worry. Titles aren't on the line. It's okay. It's okay. And the heels turn around, they go to work. You get a hot tag to Brett, House on Fire, and Brett gives us one of his moves, the elbow off the middle rope, then a suplex, all four men in the ring, and then the schmoz at the end where Anvil slams Brett onto Tully. They look like they're going to have the win, but Brain distracts the ref and Anvil, and that's when Arn comes in off the top rope with the double axe handle there and on the back of Brett's neck for the win. Good tag match. Really, really, really fun one. And you wouldn't expect anything less with these guys, all really good workers. And we get to Mean Gene backstage with Dusty Rhodes, Mac and Dream, who, wow. I mean, I don't know what he said here.
I want a transcript. Can somebody transcribe this and maybe translate it to English? Because I have no clue what he is talking about.
Talking about dancing, and this is just goofy as hell. And he ends it by saying, I'm going to kick your booty. And, I mean, this was when we hear all the ribs about they brought Dusty over here, they wanted to embarrass him and this and that. And when you see promos in situations like this, you think so, because this is not the guy who was the top guy in the NWA for a decade and cutting these really deep promos. He would get goofy and funny. It's not that he didn't have personality in that sense, but I don't know. I mean, this wasn't great. I mean, he's got the polka dots on, and he's got a police hat and the nightstick.
And handcuffs. Don't forget the handcuffs.
Yeah, and the handcuffs, too. But I will say, I do love American Dream. He's just a common man. It's great. It's a great entrance. Great theme song for Dusty Rhodes. And as much as we laugh, again, huge pop. The crowd wanted this to work. They wanted Dusty to be a big star. And he exactly nothing. He was just like a sort of a mid-carder. That's just really where he was. He didn't get elevated into any real top level feuds. And this is, the honky tonk versus Dusty Rhodes. So it's not going to be incredible in the ring, but the crowd is pretty into this. Andrew, I will say, you got a big man who's out of shape, and Dusty jokes about how, he went to the pay window with the polka dots, but this isn't awful. I think this is one of those matches where if you were just watching it in a vacuum in an empty arena like nowadays or with the sound turned down, you'd be eh. But the fact that the crowd's into it, they're playing some cat and mouse, they're both playing to the crowd a little bit, I think that helps this match quite a bit.
A little. I got to tell you, I didn't like this match nearly as much as you did. I thought it stunk. Dusty's 43 years old at this point, and while he had always been big and wide, he was starting to let himself go at this point. He would wind up dropping a little bit of the weight by the next WrestleMania when he had the mixed tag match with Savage and Sherry with Sapphire at his side. But this match was all Honky Tonk Man selling, which, to be fair, he's not necessarily a bad seller, but you try to get Honky Tonk Man some offense, and it's not a pretty sight. And this was slow. It was plodding. The finish, though, did get the crowd fired up. Honky Tonk Man gets hit by his own guitar. However, you got to look really closely because Jimmy Hart kind of butchered the way he hit Honky Tonk with the guitar. The guitar doesn't break. Jimmy Hart has to sort of throw the guitar on the floor so that they can have the visual after the match of the broken camera on the apron. It's a strange thing. I didn't like this match, especially coming on the heels of a really good opener. This didn't sit well with me. I know Dusty was in a tough position. He was still over. The crowd liked that he went over, and that was fine. But this is in a part of the show where every other match is either really, really good or it tells a really good story. This was neither.
Yeah, I mean, the crowd's into Dusty, but I have to agree with Andrew. There's really not much to this match. I mean, there's even one spot that Honky even gets caught looking when Jimmy Hart grabs Dusty's leg, and Honky's like already on his way back up off the mat, and he's like looking to see what's going on, and Dusty goes out the ring, and Honky has to like play it up and crawl around for a bit. That's the spot where he goes for the megaphone. It's kind of sloppy at times, and yeah, I mean, then Dusty sells like the megaphone to the gut. It looks a little silly. Yeah, the ending with, I mean, Jimmy Hart like swinging a guitar is like, my daughter swinging a driver. It's really not going to have much of an impact. So you kind of have that situation happen. For me, I'll be honest with you, the best part of this match was also the funniest part was when like Honky's walking back up the ramp and they try to interview him and he's like has no idea where he is. He's kind of like Joe Biden when he's in Australia and thinks he's back in Delaware, that kind of thing. So I found that pretty funny when he's like up there and he's like, "Hey, where's the stage, man? I gotta get up there." And
yeah,
that was probably enjoyable. Go ahead.
You said something about Priscilla, and they're trying to like tie it into Priscilla Presley, right? And it's just it's funny when Mooney does things like that because it's like, Mooney, who the hell knows what you're saying? But he did play a good concuss. Like Honky was funny at that point when he's all flustered and yeah.
Yeah, so for me, that was like the funniest part of the match. The rest of the match for me was just kind of I didn't really enjoy it that much, but it would have had to have been a hell of a good second match coming off the heels of the opener for me to really get behind it.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't love this match. I just think it's one of those where if I'm watching this and I'm not listening to with the crowd and getting a little more into it, it's atrocious. I didn't mind it with the fact that we had a hot crowd for Dusty. This was Dusty's first big match. We saw the vignettes and everything before, but this was his first big time on a WWF show. So Dusty Rhodes gets the win over Honky Tonk at just over 9.5 minutes here on this one. We get next to where we go. Mean Gene, he's backstage with Demolition and with Hacksaw, who has the Demolition mask and the King hat. He's just all over the place here. He's got the 2x4 with the red, white, and blue. He's got the King hat. He's got the Jason Hockey mask going on. They cut a promo on their opponents for later, Andre and the Twin Towers. It's nothing much. It's pretty basic.
I got to tell you, though, Hacksaw has a line here that I laughed out loud at. Okay, I'm going to try to get into my Hacksaw voice for just a second here. Upstate New York boy, so I'm going to try this again. These two men are trained to do one thing, destroy, attack, and destroy. Okay, that's either 2 or 3 things, depending on your counting ability. But you know what? Hacksaw was never seen as, a genius. WWF already had one of those at the time. We saw him later. But I actually had to rewind and say, did he really say what I think he just said? And then, yeah. So that to me is the only part of this promo that really stood out.
So Mick Foley tells a story, and it was on one of those old Legends of Wrestling roundtables that they used to have, and they're on the network. And who knows how true this story is. I think I've mentioned it once or twice in the shows that we've talked about. But he says that when Terry Taylor and Mr. Perfect both came into the WWF, it was at a similar time. And, he jokes about how they were, using the box of gimmicks and trying to figure out what character each of them was going to be. And it was close to making Terry Taylor a Mr. Perfect. And it's just amazing to think about when you see these two guys in the ring, because Terry Taylor isn't awful in the ring, but there's something weird about, I don't know if it's his stance or the way he goes about moving. It's just a little off to me. I mean, this is a super short match. This only goes 3 minutes and 20 seconds, and Mr. Perfect gets the win. I mean, it's a quick start. It's back and forth, some wrestling, and they go outside of the ring. As they're climbing back in, Mr. Perfect hits a perfect plex for 3. It doesn't even feel like 3 minutes, honestly. So it's hard. I guess it's hard to grade. What they're doing here, Andrew, is they're obviously very high on Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, and I think they're starting to build him here, but I don't know how much this really did for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy you mentioned the story about how they may have been in line for the others' gimmicks, and it's a fun what if. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but it's fun trying to imagine Mr. Perfect clucking around like a rooster. We actually got a little bit of that in this match because he sort of mocks Terry Taylor's strut. Poor Terry Taylor. How is this ever supposed to get over? I don't understand what WWF was thinking here. And this is something we've talked about with a number of other gimmicks. Like, for instance, let's go with the Godwins in the mid-90s. Vince McMahon is talking about them possibly having relations with farm animals. That's supposed to get who over? What's the point here?
Yeah.
It makes my head hurt a little bit when I think about it too much. There is one really good sequence in this match. They go back and forth for about 20 seconds, and it ends with Hennig falling on Taylor mid-slam. I thought that was a pretty good little sequence. It seemed like they got the go-home signal early on this match. It seemed like this was supposed to be a 6 or an 8-minute match, and somebody tipped somebody else off saying, hey, first couple of matches went long. We got to cut a couple of minutes here. Go home. That's what this seemed like to me.
Yeah, so, again, not much. Perfect's going to have a nice little run here, but things are really getting started. And he's another big name player who was, AWA where he did a lot of his best work, Hennig, and now he's here. So we're seeing folks show up at this show that have made names for themselves in other places. This next match, I thought was a ton of fun too. We've got the Rougeaus and Rick Martel against the Rockers and Shawn Michaels. So we've got a bunch of really, really solid workers in the ring. Before we get to this, though, we have a quick words backstage. Mean Gene with Rick Rude. Bobby speaks.
Take two.
Yeah, he which was funny. I thought there was one good line. He said, tell Warrior he won't have to paint his face tomorrow because he's going to have a blue eye and a black eye. So that was a good one. But we didn't, this wasn't much. It wasn't a very long promo or anything. We'll have a fun Warrior promo to discuss in a minute, and a Hulk and Brutus one a little bit later on. That's also laughable. So we get this really good match, Andrew, and Jesse's calling him Chico immediately, but we don't get a ton of the Mexico stuff. He mentions one thing about wearing a Mexican hat. Rockers are flying around early, and Jesse has a fun line here. He says, are they legal in the ring? I've said all along 90% of the Rockers double teaming is illegal, and the refs let it go just because they're pretty boys. It's super fast paced. Everyone taking turns in and out. And Martel is so great here with the character and the cartwheels and the prancing around. And Jacques Rougeau is taunting the crowd. And the heels, they're working on Chico for a while. Tio is in the match for 9 minutes straight, getting worked on. And while he's getting worked on, Andrew, I think the heel team comes in 4 or 5 times each. This is just textbook tag. They cut the ring in half. It's fun. The heels are cheating. They've got a couple heels that are really good at pissing off the crowd. And you've got the baby faces that the crowd is really into. I forgot about how, over Tito Santana is at this time. And the crowd loves the Rockers too. Anytime Tito and Martel would have little interactions, crowd ate it up.
The reason Tito Santana was seen as a jobber in the early to mid-90s for a very long time is because he had a really strong run in the 80s to where he built up his credentials, and people forget how good he was in the ring. Not just as a tag team guy, but as a singles guy. They break up Strikeforce. They put this match together with 6 guys who, when they're on their game, are all tremendous workers, every one of them. First of all, seeing a Marty Jannetty match after all the stuff that's happened, awkward, really awkward. And I just want a disclaimer here. I pointed this show out as the one we were going to go to before everything happened in the last week that show or imply or hint that maybe he killed a guy at some point. So it was really strange when I heard the Rockers music and went, that's Shawn Michaels, and oh no. But anyway.
Andrew, in fairness, if we have to go through wrestling rewatches, like avoiding awkward stuff, we're going to run out of content really quick.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's just, this was unexpected awkwardness. I'm just saying. Jacques Rougeau is big for him here. Like, he's been on something. He was big in his upper body at that point, and he would lose this when he became the Mountie not too long after this. Jesse Ventura goes nuts at the faces being in the ring at the same time. Gino, you mentioned that. I love Jimmy Hart's jacket. His outfits are usually ridiculous, but I'm partial to the jacket with the fleur-de-lis on it that he wore when he managed the Rougeaus. I always thought that was really cool. They teased the Santana-Martel showdown for a while because Martel comes in, always gets a few shots, and then tags out immediately trying to sell that he's scared of his old tag team partner. Jesse Ventura goes, he's playing a mind game with Chico. I thought that was pretty funny. Tito Santana plays a great Ricky Morton here. He gets the crap beaten out of him, as Gino mentioned, for 9 minutes. And the crowd just slowly gets amped up and amped up and amped up to the point where every time he so much as hits a punch, the crowd goes bonkers. And when Tito finally makes the hot tag to Shawn Michaels, oh boy, that's one of the biggest pops of the night. And we had Hulk Hogan at the peak of his powers later on in the main event, so that's saying something. This was a really fun match, and as I mentioned with the tag team opener, they're not doing anything complicated here. This is old school psychology played to a hilt. Martel gets a cheap pin after running and following the chaos. Sort of a similar finish to what we saw in the opener, but this match was really, really, really good, and given the guys involved, that's not a surprise.
Yeah, it's a high flying kind of fast paced match, with the exception of part of the Tito stuff where he's getting beat up a little bit. You don't get a lot of Shawn in this match, and I know you get the hot tag, but even off the hot tag, he's only in the ring for maybe 90 seconds as a legal man doing action. So, I almost wonder if Shawn might have been hurt here or something like that, because he was in the match for so little, and I thought that was kind of interesting. One move that I do love of Jacques Rougeau, he's got a real pretty backwards flying elbow, doesn't he? That move that he does, that Shane McMahon, does now in his matches, it's a real pretty move. But I think it's high flying, fast paced match. You got chaos a couple of different times. The commentary is great. Like you guys said, you have 6 tremendous workers in there that when they're on top of their game, they're all phenomenal. And it's a highly enjoyable match. You have, you still have the Martel Santana blow-off going on from Strikeforce. That's seemingly been going on for a year at this point. But yeah, really enjoyable match. Fits well in the middle of the card. Good bridge, and really does a good job in getting the crowd worked up for the next match, which is, in my opinion, probably the best match on the card, which is kind of a crazy thing to say when you're talking about the Ultimate Warrior.
I mean, this is good. There's just nothing that I really disliked about this. When the heels are cheating, Tony says at one point, "Come on, ref, get Raymond Rougeau out of there." And Jesse says, "Hey, Shivani, you just call the match. Don't you try to make predictions or tell referees what to do." Tito has a near fall, and Jesse says Chico almost pulled one out of his Mexican hat there. And the crowd starts chanting Tito. Yeah, Darin, you're right, though. Sean's not in this a whole ton. It's one of those things you don't really realize until you pointed it out. And at the end, we get the hot tag to Sean, suplex, knee off the top. All 6 men are in the ring. Rockers go to work. Tito hits the flying forearm on Martel. Jannetty has Jimmy Hart. All hell's breaking loose. And somehow Martel pins Marty for a steal of a W there. So really fun match. And we get a build-up package for Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude. And I got to say, rewatching these pay-per-views back now, we always get told that the Ultimate Warrior can't really work. And we've all seen some of his matches that weren't good. We talked about one of them here in 1998, Halloween Havoc in WCW.
You're welcome.
But I gotta say, you look at WrestleMania 5 against Rick Rude. Big match. He was excellent. SummerSlam. Big match against Rick Rude. He's excellent. I think, 90, WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan, big spot. He's excellent. WrestleMania, again with Rude at SummerSlam. He's really good. Big match with Savage, both times with Savage. He's really good. In all of his big spots, he did really deliver. He did. So the more and more I go back and watch him, he does things in this match that I never remember the Ultimate Warrior doing. A German suplex? He actually pulls some wrestling out in here. He actually sells and doesn't look like he's spazzing out when he's selling. It's really good. And these two guys, for some reason, there's partnerships like this in wrestling and in anything where you're just with someone and you just mesh. And these two guys, because I watch a lot of Rude matches and he's good, but there's a lot of guys that you see Rude with, Jake or DB, or others that you expect a little more from, and they're not there. He does a hell of a job with Warrior and DZ. I know Warrior's your guy, and this is a great match, so we'll start over here with you. This one impressed me again. I get so impressed when I watch his big matches back.
Yeah, this one I remember it being good. I actually thought this match was better than the WrestleMania 5 match as well. It's kind of weird because Warrior, whenever they give him a belt, they paired him with Rude, and I wonder if it's just because when they got together, they worked really well together, and maybe that showed, because when you think about his title run in '90, Rude was the heel that he went up against. There wasn't really, until he lost the belt to Slaughter. I mean, there wasn't really much else going on. He had some stuff, with Savage as the Macho King and things like that. But him and Savage fought on and off for years. So it's kind of funny that regardless of whether it was the IC belt or the WWF title, they kept putting Warrior with Rude together. And I'm sure that was by design because they probably thought they had something with the two of them. I thought, look, does Warrior tell a story in the ring? No, the story normally is, I'm a absolute maniac and I'm just going to come in and hit the ropes at 1,000 miles an hour. This match, I wouldn't say it told a personal story, but you kind of get more into it than other Warrior matches. It just seems to have more flow to it, probably because these guys do have good chemistry. But you're right, Warrior does some stuff here that you don't really see him do. You mentioned the German suplex. That's one that I had a note on. Later on in the match, he grabs him off that top rope and hits him with the suplex like you talked about. I mean, even the rest holds, they have some stories behind them with Warrior powering out, when, Rude's got him in like that chin lock and Warrior's trying to get up and Rude keeps like popping on his back and knocking him down and stuff. And, I love the spot where later on in the match, where Rude is like hitting him in the traps with those shots and the Warrior's just like, impervious to it, but he's not doing like the goofy Warrior stuff. He's just, he's just there, like just shaking it off. And then he starts belting Rude with it. That was a cool spot. Later on hits a real nice pile driver on Rude, very well executed. So, Yeah, the bottom line for me is that you get a lot more technically sound wrestling in this than you would expect in a Warrior match. And it's almost to the point where I'm thinking, like, maybe we should sell him too short. Maybe he's actually not as bad
I agree.
in the ring as we thought.
I agree.
Maybe if they actually gave this guy a match where he didn't have to be blown up after 3 minutes and the guy across the ring, then listen, I'm not saying that he can work with a broomstick. But if you give him a guy that's good enough and that they're in sync and they have good chemistry, you get a pretty good match. And you mentioned, I mean, from beginning of 89, through, the Savage match at WrestleMania 7 and the Savage match in 92, you get some damn good Warrior matches. And to be honest with you, probably why I liked them a lot, as a kid.
I mean, an honest question, would you take the Warriors' best matches, the ones that I just mentioned, or the Hogan best matches? I think the Warrior ones, because of the two with Macho, are better than anything, and the couple with Rude are good. Well, now with Hogan, we've got the Hogan Macho is good. Hogan Andre is awesome. Like, I like that more than people do because the three Mania and the feel and everything, that's really good. But yeah. I mean, we're talking Hogan Slaughter, Hogan Warrior, that is one where they both were good. His big matches were all really, really good. And Andrew, I mean, before we got right into it, I wanted to let Darin talk a little bit about this debating because I know how much he likes Warrior in this match. But Andrew, before we even get into this, we get this package, this filled up package for Warrior Rude, which is really good. And it's long and it goes through all of their history. And we get this promo from the Warrior. He comes in from the other room and he interrupts me and Gene and he says, "The conditions that I have already continued to worsen as I have." And then he says something about straitjackets and rubber rooms across these weak planets. The power will become the eighth wonder of the world as we hear you alive? I don't know. I mean, this is what I think he said. Then he says Rude is going to surrender to the gods above him and beats him 1, 2, 3. I mean, this was one of those out there ones for Warrior.
All right. Here's the thing. If you watch an Ultimate Warrior promo in the late 1980s, I'm not going to say the 90s because as he got more established as a star, I will argue his promos got slightly better to the point
they had
where
more
you
purpose.
At least got where he was going.
Yeah, they were focused more. He talked about the Warriors and the spirit, and it felt like it had more direction.
Yes. Now, if you can watch a late 80s Warrior promo and understand it, you need to go to rehab. I'm just saying, this is out there, miles away stuff where he might have been one of those guys who would have benefited from somebody handing him a script as opposed to everyone else in the locker room who shined with the creative freedom that they were given. This was another one of those promos where you're looking for somebody with a transcript who could maybe translate it into English.
I rewound it back. I kept playing it back 5 times. 6 times, trying to jot down word for word what he was saying, and I have no idea. Idea.
Okay, now for this trick, I'm going to need a volunteer. Gino, Darin, which one of you wants to be Shivani?
I'll do it.
All right. So backstory: Warrior press slams Rude onto the floor for a lead up, and this for some reason drives Jesse Ventura insane. This is the lead up to this. There was no call for that. This is professional wrestling. You wrestle inside the ring. This guy's a lunatic. And there's a couple other things. So they work their way over to the ring announcer stand where the belt is. Warrior grabs the belt. Warrior whacks Rude in the back. Full view of the referee. That should be a disqualification. Gino, your line.
Well, I mean, they were outside of the ring, so
So what? What are you going to tell me, Shivani? You can shoot somebody outside the ring as long as it's outside the ring? You're even dumber than Monsoon. No. And I thought Gorilla was the stupidest guy alive.
It was just amazing. I mean, awesome. It is one of the best. It is one of the best Jesse because the thing about Jesse. And Bobby is sort of like this, but he's less like this. What makes Jesse such a good heel announcer is that the things that he points out, he's right.
Yep.
He's right. When he points out a ref is screwing one of the guys or something's happening, or he's right, and he always is on the right side of Gorilla, or in this case, Tony. And that's what makes him so credible when you listen back to him through the years, because he's not – and he'll do those things where he's obviously laying it on with some of the heels that he does, or he has his shtick. But the things that offend him are actually mistakes or real things that he's just calling, which I love.
Yeah. It's the old Michael Hayes philosophy. A heel always believes 100% that he is in the right. And in a lot of instances, Jesse Ventura was, in this case being one of them. The line that you missed, though, was right after the rant where Shivani tries to no-sell it and goes, right to the head. And for some reason, that always cracks me up. I don't know why, but it always cracks me up. Now, going back to what you and Darin were talking about a little bit with the match itself, I will make the argument that Rick Rude was the perfect foil for the Ultimate Warrior, because he's big enough and built enough to where you could take him seriously if it devolved into a fist fight, but he was a good enough wrestler to lead Warrior through a match without Warrior tripping over his own 2 feet. Look at the opponents that he was going up against. Hogan obviously worked, but that's because Hogan was Hogan. DiBiase, not really. Andre couldn't work at that point. Hercules, the main guy that Warrior was feuding with when he was rising into a star, that didn't really work because Hercules couldn't lead him through a match. Rude obviously could. This was a case where those two guys and what they brought to the table meshed perfectly. Now, they did not like one another. There are stories of Rick Rude knocking the Ultimate Warrior out with one punch in a dressing room brawl back when they were both in the Intercontinental title picture. And Rude actually left the WWF over what he perceived as a bad payoff for main eventing the next year's SummerSlam in a cage match with Warrior. Warrior got a lot more money than Rude did. Rude took that as a sign of disrespect. He wound up going to Japan, and then he wound up going to WCW. Really cool story. Now, this match, very, very good. This was Warrior's best match to date. You could argue the Savage matches after this were certainly better, but this was the match where if you watched this and you heard the pop after Warrior won the title,
this is why he got pushed. This is why 100%.
Crazy not to push the guy.
100%. This is why he was the guy. This was the match that he sold Vince on. This match right here, saying I can be your guy now.
Yep.
And you know, just what you were saying, I think the only thing that maybe it could have changed a little bit for him was getting to work with Savage a little bit earlier. You know, if he just got to work with Savage instead of Slaughter, let's say, Warrior, and you get a good feud with Savage there instead of that stuff with Slaughter, because, you know, we talk about it. What ends up happening in this main event, I think it hurts Savage. You know, just the way he's booked, the way that he, with the flying elbow and Hogan pops right up, he feels like he's not even on Brutus's level when they're in the match, which is, and that just hurts Savage, who had been the main event heel for a while, and it ends up backfiring and hurting Warrior a little later on. So, yeah, I mean, this was good. Let's kind of clean up some of the stuff here. So at the very beginning, we get one of Rude's best with the microphone too.
SummerSlam sweat hogs.
Yeah, what I like to have right now is for all you fat, out of shape SummerSlam sweat hogs, keep the noise down while I take my robe off and show the ladies what a real sexy man looks like. He's got Warrior crying painted on his tights, and deafening reaction for UW, the Ultimate Warrior. And Jesse's furious right away because he press slams Rude outside the ring. There's no call for that. The name of the sport is wrestling. You wrestle inside the ring. This guy's a lunatic. I don't like him. He goes by his own rules. And Andrew and I did the back and forth. And then at the very end of that, Jesse even says, this is ridiculous that Joey Morella is allowing this to take place in an Intercontinental Championship match. I mean, double axe handle from Ultimate Warrior, some suplexes here. In Warrior even mimics Rude and does a little hip wiggle, showing a little personality and a sort of a different side here. He hits a pile driver. Ref crawls over, and it was like 2.9, and Rude gets his foot on the ropes. Really great spot. And this was like one of the best uses of his repertoire. And as Andrew said, for sure, up until this point, there was one scary spot that I don't know. When Rude goes for the pile driver, and I don't know what happened, but Warrior kind of curls up, and it ends up being a weird sort of powerbomb-ish thing, and he kind of drops him on the back of his neck. It looked like it could have been scary, but it ended up being okay. It just kind of ended up being a powerbomb, but that was one of the only gripes I have. Piper ends up coming down, the crowd's nuts, and Piper distracts Rude to further their storyline here. And then Ultimate Warrior comes from behind. He hits a German suplex, and then the shoulder tackle, gorilla press, and the splash for the W. He's the 2-time IC champ. And DZ, this is a title. That's your man. Never loses.
Nope, he kind of runs with it all the way up to WrestleMania 6 with the match with Hogan before he relinquishes the IC title when they, realize it's probably not the best idea to have one guy defending 2 belts, and you end up having that IC title tournament, which I believe Perfect wins, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he faces Tino in the final Perfect or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, this is, you're seeing all the reasons why. Vince was probably completely enamored with Warrior at this point, like you touched upon. And you're right. Based on these reactions, based on what you were seeing, there was no reason why you didn't think, you have Savage as the heel. You take a look at what's going on behind Hogan. Who's going to be the next guy, to run with the torch? And when you go up and down and you're looking at the reactions, who's it going to be? It's not going to be Dusty Rhodes because, we've touched on that. This is the guy with the biggest reaction, and it made sense. His big title run is probably somewhat lackadaisical and somewhat poorly booked, and I think he was a victim of poor circumstance. But, like we said, and we'll finish it at this, maybe we give him a bit of a tough criticism because time and time again, we talk about how his big matches are actually better than we remember. And, maybe that self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior was even further off than we thought.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the ones that stands up when I look back. And we see Sean Mooney out with the fans celebrating, and then we get backstage with Mean Gene, and we get a row of promos. First, it's Mr. Perfect, who tells everyone to listen up. Nobody beats Mr. Perfect. Pretty quick promo. Then he leaves, and Rowdy Roddy comes in laughing. Yeehaw! He mentions Pete Rose, Voyager 3. He says, what does a Scotsman wear under his kilt? His shoes! And he does that because he mooned Rick Rude at ringside to distract Rude in that Warrior match. So, and then he asks if George Steinbrenner is running the Heenan camp. He butchers Steinbrenner's name a little bit. And he calls Bobby the eunuch of the WWF. And he says, of course it's my fault that Rick Rude lost the title. So this was just Piper energetic. He's only been back for a few months now, and he is all over the place, just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. We then get Ronnie Garvin, who comes in the tux and says he has a special assignment. And then, to me, the best of these was by far Bobby the Brain. He comes in. He is hysterical. He was screaming how Piper was allowed. Why was Piper allowed at ringside? He doesn't have a manager's license. Mean Gene tells him to settle down. And then Rude is pissed. He says Piper showed his ask Bobby what happened, which I thought was really funny right there. He was, instead of saying ask, he just said ask Bobby. And then Bobby says he demands to go back to the ring, restart the match. Piper shouldn't be allowed to go. And Mean Gene says, hey, listen to yourself, man. You're babbling. You got to gain composure. I mean, that part was so funny. And then they mentioned intermission. So, Andrew, anything that stood out to you in the little rolling set of promos we got there?
One thing, actually, and this is a very basic mathematical equation that was very popular in the 1980s, especially if you're eagle-eyed and you know where to look. Piper comes in. If you look closely, he's got blue lips and he's rubbing his nose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking there was a little nose candy backstage on this evening. And I hesitate to say that because a lot of times the word coked up promo gets used by a lot of people in watching 1980s wrestling, and it's almost a stereotype. This wasn't something that everyone was just shoveling into their nose, into their body, whatever. But this is blatantly obvious if you know where to look. And that was just, the more I'm looking, I'm like, wait a minute, his lips are blue. He's going at the bottom of his nose, trying to dust something off. Yep, that's Coke. That's what stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I do remember that. I don't remember thinking it, but now that you mention it, I see it. Yeah, coked up promo is definitely a stereotype, but look, there are some stereotypes that are just foul. Then there are some that are stereotypes for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We'll leave it at that.
Sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the promo with where they show the interview with Sherry and Zeus with I love the Savage part of it where Zeus is just like looks like he's gonna bite Savage's finger off like it's like Savage is just pointing in Zeus' face and it's like Zeus with his lazy eye is like just staring at this finger and it's just like so weird. like I don't like Savage's hand is just shaking like crazy.
That's the weird thing about Zeus is like the acting things are which he should be better at. He's not. Like just the little things and being able to speak. It's hilarious. He calls him Beefcake Barber. When they show the other, he can't even get the name right. He just can't. I agree with you that one with Mean Gene backstage after the intermission where it's the build-up footage for the story between Hulk and Brutus and Zeus and Macho, and Zeus destroys Hulk and would no-sell everything, and he calls him Beefcake Barber. I mean, it is weird. And what's weird about this, too, is something we discussed. So, before we came on, so No Holds Barred in the movie, Hulk Hogan is playing a character named Rip. Zeus is really Tiny Lister in real life, but he's still Zeus from the movie in WWF. How does that make sense? It's like when RoboCop is in WCW, it's just like, so he's Zeus in what? That's the only thing watching this back as someone that's older that I have a hard time struggling with these, like how meta this is in particular. But yeah, we had a little roll of promos here and we get to a 6-man tag now. Andrew, what do we have in this match, Andrew?
Oh, gee, we have, let me take a look here. We have 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4, depending on your opinions of X and Smash. We have big guys that can move. Everybody
drink. When they announced the Twin Towers and Andre the Giant, so this is a 6-man tag, Boss Man Akeem and Andre the Giant versus Demolition and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. The combined weight for the Twin Towers and Andre, 1,334 pounds. They have Slick and Bobby alongside with them, accompanying them to the ring. And it's Demolition with Hacksaw with the face mask. Jesse said he looks like Jason from Friday the 13th. He's got his face painted red, white, and blue when he takes the mask off. And I will say, this crowd was very, very hot for this. And I like what they did for the most part because it's all quick tags. You know what we're going to get from these guys, right? They're not great workers. They're just big guys who would be better off in a match with a smaller guy. But in this situation, the way they put this together, nobody was in there very long. Andre, who didn't have much left, was barely in there at all, which is what we would see from Andre when they kind of hit him well in tag matches. The crowd loved it. Nobody was in there long enough for it to get too slow or for it to get too boring. And I didn't have any problem with this. I thought it was better than I was expecting it when I saw it, and I'm glad they didn't have it go 5 minutes more and really slow things down.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, you got a lot of meat in the ring, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Duggan, for me, kind of just doesn't fit in with this match. Like, I don't know what it is. The whole Demolition Mask, King Duggan thing. Like, he just kind of, like, to me, sticks out like a sore thumb with the other 5 guys. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, the Twin Towers were such an imposing tag team at the time. And obviously Demolition and Andre. And then you got, like, goofball Duggan with, like, the red, white, and blue face paint and stuff. I mean, the crowd's into Duggan. Like, look, I'm biased because I was never was never a Duggan guy. I always thought it was like corny and cheesy, even as a kid. But you're right. At least you do get fast tags in and out. You don't get like a lot of just drawn out rest and stuff like that. The match is only about 7 minutes long. You get the Andre sitting down on Axe spot. So you get Andre getting a little love. All the Andre stuff is going to be pretty slow and methodical as you would expect. But I'll tell you one thing, man. Boss Man is big here. Did you notice that?
Woo! Yeah, he's really big.
He's always a big guy. He's big here. Like I remember that he was bigger back then compared to what he looked like in like 91, 92. Mm-hmm. But man, big. You get Akeem going up to like the second rope and hitting a splash and stuff. So you get like kind of your big guys that can move. And of course, at the end of the match, you get your crowd pleasing finish. Of course, with Duggan with the 2x4. It's fine. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's cool. It's nothing terrible, nothing great. Kind of one of those matches that I forgot about and watched it back and had a couple of laughs.
Darin, I'm going to send you an invoice for using Big Man That Can Move. I'm just saying. I
know your royalties for that one.
Yeah, the little 37 cents, whatever it costs to send a postage stamp. I don't know. Anyway,
there you go.
I liked this match. I thought it was fun. You guys nailed it. It was incredibly well booked. It was 7-8 minutes, really quick tags. Andre can't do a ton, but if you look on his face, he's clearly having fun with this. The other guys in the ring are really enjoying themselves. Akeem in particular, I'm going to give a shout out to because he does a nice job bouncing around in here for Demolition. We know Boss Man can sell. He's probably the smallest guy of the three, so that's not a shock. But Akeem had his working boots on for this one, and he had no problem selling for Demolition and for Duggan. Smash has a really good spot where he slams Boss Man and Akeem back-to-back, and then he tries to go after Andre, and that predictably doesn't work too well. Ref gets distracted. Hacksaw hits Akeem with the 2x4, and Smash pins him. Not crazy about the finish, and the match wasn't what I would call particularly good, but you know what? For what this was, the first match back after an intermission, and you're trying to get the crowd fired up again, this checked the box. I enjoyed myself watching this, even though it wasn't particularly well worked by anybody's standards.
Yeah, I think it was just a slightly more than I was expecting. And so, you look at some tag matches on this show that I really enjoyed. We got a Warrior Rude match that was really good. This one surprised. Then the last few, I didn't really love. We'll get into them individually. I can understand where they were, but this Valentine Ronnie Garvin feud was kind of a weird one. It just sort of felt out of place because Valentine didn't really get. I mean, when was the last feud that Valentine had before or after this? He was never really in feuds. He was just someone that would show up and wrestle you on Superstars or be on the opposite side or in a tag or, with Jimmy Hart. But there were very few storylines with Valentine. And so this one with Garvin, no, I didn't even mind some of the Garvin stuff that he was saying when he was the ring announcer. There were a few cute things that he did, and he was making fun of Jimmy Hart, and it's okay. So Ronnie Garvin comes out after a quick $1 Million Man Virgil promo, very basic. Ronnie Garvin's out to the ring to announce the next match. Hercules, Greg Valentine. He calls Valentine the so-called opponent, accompanied by the pipsqueak big mouth of the South. Says Greg is overweight, about 30 pounds, and calls his manager Wimpy and Little Jimmy, and that Greg has 2 left feet and a robe of cheap rhinestone. This match only goes 3 minutes. It's really quick. It's more about furthering the feud with Valentine and Garvin, which I believe has their blow-off at Royal Rumble 1990. So this thing still goes for about 5 more months after this. It's just really not much. It's a 3-minute match, and Valentine gets the win. And then after the match, Garvin actually announces most of the match. The Hammer is distracted by Garvin, who's sitting ringside. Valentine cheats. He gets a roll up with his feet on the ropes, and then Garvin announces the winner, Hercules. He says, "I misunderstood. The winner of the match by DQ is Hercules." Garvin comes in and nails Greg Valentine, but DZ, this isn't really much.
No, it's a quick match. It's one of those, get the guys in the car, get them paid kind of matches. Doesn't do much. The Garvin stuff at times can be funny. They should have announced him as the special guest referee also because he kept changing the decision, which was kind of weird at the end, and you get this feud kind of building up. But, yeah, I mean, not very memorable. Don't even really remember the Valentine-Garvin feud. Don't want to spend more than 30 seconds talking about a 3-minute match. It is what it is, so I'll leave it at that. But just one of those fillers.
Couple of good lines from Shivani and Jesse. Garvin comes in. He starts the ring announcing. Shivani says, he's doing a good job. Jesse Ventura, indignant, yells, he's reading cue cards.
He did, yeah.
I thought that was really funny. Garvin had a couple of good lines. He said Greg Valentine is the only wrestler he's ever seen with 2 left feet. You can't tell if he's coming or going. That was pretty good stuff. The rest of it was just all sort of there and was window dressing. So I can't spend too much time talking about it, but Garvin made me laugh a little bit. Going back a little bit, though, you sort of glossed over the DiBiase promo.
Sure. What'd you think there?
It's an uncomfortable watch. He calls Jimmy Snuka a native.
Oh, yeah, and an
says he's going to be another sorry statistic in wrestling. Oh, boy. Talk about another promo you can't do 31 years later. This is something that if they had even tried this 15 years later, there would have been outcry of ridiculous proportions. DiBiase was a heel, obviously. He was a snob. So it did, fit his character to a certain extent. But they went a little far with that aspect of Snuka, and we'll get to that in the next match.
So we are to our final 2 matches now. We talked a little bit about this promo, Andrew, a few minutes ago, but it actually comes up right now. This is the one with the Macho Man, Zeus, and Sherry. They're backstage with Mean Gene. They've got that weird cauldron of madness, and it's supposed to help them destroy Hulk and Brutus. I mean, Sherry looks absolutely absurd with what the makeup she's got on. Macho is looking into the cauldron. He calls Brutus the weak link. And this is crazy. It shows you how much trust they have in Zeus. He didn't say one damn word. He's just muttering. He's just, ugh. It's like, no, we tried to give this guy one line to say, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and he said, Beefcake Baba. And so we're not even going to let him say a word, but I don't know. I understand why they had to have Macho in this match. Macho needs to be a worker, and he ties the storyline together because he had been Hogan's previous feud and rival for a while. But it just, I don't know, it feels, Macho Man just feels out of place in here. It just doesn't feel, he feels like such a side player in all of this because this really was, a Hogan-Zeus feud.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who you were leading that to, but I guess I'll take it. It's weird, it's strange. Sherry Martel scared the crap out of me. The thing I will say though is a young Andrew did meet Sherry Martel at an independent wrestling show in Wildwood, New Jersey. My dad was no Sherry Martel fan before that, but Sherry Martel, God bless her, was incredibly nice to 11 or 12-year-old Andrew. That was the same show where there's a photo of me getting choked by King Kong Bundy. It was that show. Sherry Martel, very nice. Very sorry that she unfortunately is no longer with us. But she did a lot in the business, and she would wind up having a role not just in the main event, but after the main event, she was the heel that ultimately got the real comeuppance, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and right after this backstage promo, Tony says he doesn't know who's more bonkers, Honky Tonk Man after getting hit by the own guitar, or Sherry, which I thought was a funny line there. And now we get Ted DiBiase with Virgil versus Jimmy Snuka, and he grabs the mic and he says he's the man that ended Jake the Snake's wrestling career, and Ted goes after Jimmy Snuka, but he misses, and he ducks out of the ring, and then DiBiase actually ends up nailing Virgil. So the first minute or so, it's all Superfly. Jesse says he's like an animal. He can always be trained and always outsmarted. And they botch this leapfrog. Superfly lands on DiBiase, And Jesse and Tony are arguing about if Jimmy can actually strategize or if he's just all animal instinct. Jesse says he's a Neanderthal with a hard head. We get a stun gun from DiBiase. He drops Snuka across the top rope, which is a cool spot. Jesse says it's instinct wrestler versus thinking wrestler. And DiBiase's in charge for a bit, but he misses from the top rope, and that's when Jimmy Snuka takes over. We get a headbutt off the middle rope, and he goes up top for the splash, but Virgil comes over and distracts him. So Snuka jumps down and follows Virgil. That's when DiBiase attacks from behind. When Jimmy is down on the outside, he gets counted out, and he gets mad afterwards and attacks Virgil and DiBiase, and Jesse's pissed. Now that's a sore loser. Jimmy Snuka could face a fine or a suspension. Totally bad sportsmanship. What a sore loser. And Snuka hits the splash on Virgil, and this splash, I will say, DZ, this thing was like halfway across the ring. Snuka didn't quite have what he had, years earlier when he was a much bigger draw on the card, but this splash looked damn good, and the crowd popped, and they were ready for the main event.
Yeah, I mean, Snuka, maybe he wasn't as good as he once was, but he's better than most at that, to say the least. He could still fly. He's still in damn good shape at this point of his career, even though he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. DiBiase, of course, can sell better, than almost anybody. He does that one, flip over the top rope where it looks like he got launched out of a cannon. I mean, it's kind of a random match that's there. It gets you keyed up for the main event. It's fine. Enjoyed it. I mean, it's always a little bit weird watching Snuka for obvious reasons, and we've talked about that in the past. But I mean, I enjoyed the match for what it was. There's no story to it or anything like that. But as it existed in a vacuum, it was fine. Nothing terrible to say about it.
For me, the leapfrog spot sticks out like a sore thumb, and the way the commentary team played it off, that does not age well. I mean, just thinking about how, Snuka is an animal, and not in like the animal Batista in like, you're not from here, so you're an animal. No,
they're saying like like Neanderthal animal.
Yeah, that was not good. And I got to tell you, after that, I sort of lost interest in the match. And then you add in the non-finish at the end. That didn't help. I will say Snuka's splash still looks like a thing of beauty at this point. Virgil is almost halfway across the ring. Snuka deliberately takes the longest route possible to get to him, and he lands it flush. So credit where it's due there, but the rest, uncomfortable watch.
Okay. We get this promo backstage. It's Mean Gene backstage with Hulk and Brutus. And, I mean, it's funny because I bet you when Hulk saw this back the first time, he probably just laughed at himself because his first line is, "Well, you know something, Mean Gene, ever since me and the barber hooked up, we've been hanging and banging." Okay. Sure. Then he mentions that there's traffic all over. So when they're on the way to the arena, they end up going towards the river, and it parted like Moses with the Red Sea. Brutus talks for a minute, and he talks about his titanium steel blades. And then Hogan talks about riding Harleys. I mean, this one in the Warrior promo, between those two promos and the Cauldron stuff with Savage and Zeus and Sherry, there were some, and Piper. I mean, Andrew, you might have been onto something. That stuff might have been floating around backstage in this particular night, because there were some guys that cut good to great promos that all seemed to kind of swing and miss tonight.
Yeah, and as a New Yorker, talking about swimming across the Hudson River when there was traffic on the George Washington Bridge, oh boy. I mean, first of all, knowing what was in the Hudson River in 1989, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. Mind you, it's 31 years later, and some of the stuff is still in there, but just knowing how polluted that body of water was, all of a sudden, Hulk Hogan's 24-inch pythons, they make a little bit of sense. So they cut this promo, and Beefcake gets really obsessed with the shears. And I'm looking at this going, he's supposed to be a babyface, and he's presenting the shears like a serial killer?
Yeah, it's creepy.
Sure. Yeah. Oh boy. This was bad.
DZ, anything on the your boy Hogan? I figured you'd have something to say about him in this one.
I'm speechless.
I know, and we don't get that often.
I really, to be honest with you, I forgot about it. And watching it back, I was just so like entrenched in just the hysterical lunacy of it all that I really did not even understand what was happening in that promo. I guess it was live. So they couldn't edit it. But whatever. There was a couple of weird things, and it's as we segue, into the match. Here's one thing, and I'll send it right back to you, Gino. That really confused me. So you go from that promo, you build up the whole main event. Now, Savage's music hits, and here they come. This always bothered me. Why do you have Zeus just walking out with Savage to Savage's music?
Right behind him.
Like
it makes it seem even weirder that Brutus doesn't come out with Hogan. That makes it seem even weirder that Brutus comes out to his own music. I completely agree. It was weird. And we didn't have you didn't need music at this time. The Brainbusters, there were a lot of acts that still didn't have music. It wasn't weird to just come out. So if you're going to have Zeus just come out first maybe and then Savage behind him, that would be fine. But yeah, I agree with you. I didn't like the way they did that. And then everything about this match made me feel like they were trying really hard to push Brutus up. I mean, when he comes in at one point and he's like actually getting the better of Zeus, which Hogan hadn't done the whole match. And that was one of the things that I didn't like. It made Savage seem very meaningless. And I agree with you at that point with Zeus coming out. I didn't like the setup. I didn't like a lot of things about this match. The crowd didn't mind though. And the Genius comes out and he cuts his poem and it was okay. My favorite line was, Brutus Beefcake and Hulk Hogan will be running for their lives. The highest card they're holding is the deuce. They are totally unqualified to match the Royal Flush. That should be coming from the Macho Man and Zeus. I thought that was one of his clever ones. He was good. And you could tell he loved doing this too. When you hear Lanny talk about it, he loved this Genius character. Sherry's in the sparkling silver outfit. She looks insane with all that makeup. Jesse says, Sherry is a real woman. And Tony has a good one. He says, really weird, which was quick, just quick on his feet. And then separate entrances for Brutus and for Hulk Hogan. I mean, the crowd's pumped for Brutus, and they're obviously, crazy for Hulk. And when they get in the ring, Hulk whispers to Howard Fink, and Finkel announces that Miss Elizabeth is here. And she looks excellent. Red, sparkling dress. We get all four men in the ring to start, and Hogan's shots have no impact on Zeus. He's trying to slam him. Doesn't work. Zeus squeezes Brutus, chokes, bear hugs Hogan, tags in Macho. Zeus is just so slow. He can't even do an Irish whip. He just can't even run at the pace to make an Irish whip look believable. It's all bear hugs, choke, shots to the solar plexus. The heels all work on Hogan for the first 6 minutes of the match or so. And Hogan makes a tag to Brutus. We get the big clothesline, a high knee to Macho. He locks in the sleeper. Macho's able to get out of it and tag Zeus. And then Bruce rakes the eyes of Zeus and he jumps on his back. This is the first impact that we've seen. Zeus sort of, stumbling around a little bit. Macho then nails Brutus from behind with the purse. They're talking about this purse like it's loaded, Sherry's purse. And Hulk comes in for a save after a few different times he comes in for a save. Macho ends up running after Liz, but then Hulk chases after him. And it's Zeus and Brutus in the ring. Then Macho tags in. Zeus looks pissed at this point because Macho tags himself in. He kind of smacks him on the chest. You know what Darin was talking about? Zeus just looks pissed at Macho Man all the time too, even. Hulk Hogan comes in, though, House of Fire. He suplexes Macho from outside the ring. He's on the apron into the ring, but Sherry pulls Hulk's legs and Macho falls in top. This was the same finish spot from Mania 5, Rude and Warrior, with Bobby the Brain Heenan, where Rude wins the title. So kind of cool to see that spot a few months later. Macho Man then tags in Zeus. Macho hits this is, Darin, I'm sure you didn't like this spot, and this one pissed me off. So Macho, they're working on Hogan. He's down. Macho tags in Zeus, and then he goes to the top rope, and he hits his flying elbow. And Hulk Hogan just immediately pops up. So I don't understand. Macho Man is not the honky-tonk man here. He's not some mid-carder to kind of goofy comedy act. He is still your main heel in the company and one of your top guys. Why are you having this happen to him? I do not like it. It bothers me. It really rubs me the wrong way. I hated that. I really did. You cannot no-sell the top heel in the company that had a year-long title reign and you had this big feud with. He hits you with his big move and you just pop right up. At this point, Zeus starts to feel some of Hulk's punches. They start to have some effect. You get a clothesline and Zeus is down to one knee. Sherry gets on the ropes and she's trying to distract the referee. So Liz flips her over and into the ring. Sherry is just bumping like always. Hogan picks up Sherry's purse. And, I mean, there's stuff going on all over the place. The crowd is going nuts. Hulk Hogan ends up nailing Zeus with the purse. Then the body slam and a leg drop for the win. Sherry's in the ring. I think she might have slightly missed the spot. She sort of gets caught in there, and it's a little awkward. But then after the match, this is another thing that you wouldn't see. I mean, Hogan gives her an atomic drop, and everyone's just cheering for him to smack Sherry. Liz ends up nailing Sherry with the purse, and then they get the shears and they cut off Sherry's ponytail. So she is a big part of this match and this show, this main event. Jesse is furious that Hogan beat up a woman, and he calls Liz a gold digger. And Jesse is just disgusted with this celebration. And we get like a 6-7 minute post-match celebration, Hogan, Brutus, and Liz in the ring. Andrew, I gotta be honest, I like this show, top to bottom, I really do. It just, the main event's There are a couple spots. There are 3 or 4 really enjoyable matches that I wouldn't mind watching, a couple times here and there. This one, there were too many little things about it that I didn't like. And obviously, we laugh at Zeus and his work rate.
Yeah, and I'm happy Darin is with us because the last time we were all together, he nailed the description of Zeus. I'm not even going to try to go back and repeat what he had mentioned. If you want to go back and check it out, I'll pause for 3 seconds so that you can go open a new tab, skew to it, and listen to what Darin said. Okay, we're back. Now, Zeus has no coordination here. This is a guy who could not walk and chew gum at the same time. He just looked like a monster, had maybe 2 or 3 moves, and you could tell he had 2 or 3 moves, and the instructions were, okay, go out, don't hurt anybody, take the body slam, get splashed, we go home. Macho has to yell at Zeus a couple of times. If you look, he sort of grabs Zeus by the head and has to pull him down a little bit so that he can yell something into his ear. And a couple of times it was, get out of the ring, because Macho tagged out already. It's pretty funny if you watch and you see Macho try to conduct everybody because, look, for as much as we want to knock Hogan, not a bad worker by any means. Much as we want to knock Beefcake, he could work if he was in there with someone who could lead him. Savage was playing traffic cop here, and he was trying to direct everything that was going on. And one of the reasons that we all have so much respect for the Macho Man Randy Savage is he's one of the few guys in the history of the business that could do that with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now, So Hogan actually takes a really big beating early to the point where he tags out, Beefcake comes in, and the crowd goes nuts. That's probably the biggest pop Brutus the Barber Beefcake has ever gotten in the history of his career. When he gets the hot tag from Hogan, people are cheering for him saying, yeah, go Brutus, go beat up Randy Savage. And it's surreal in hindsight because take away the shears and what do you have? Not a whole heck of a lot. So they work some spots around Sherry Martel's purse. First of all, yes, it is a purse. It is not a satchel, Hangover fans. It is a purse. So they work a couple of spots around there. Beefcake tags in Hogan. Jesse says something that rubs me the wrong way. He says, oh, Hogan will come in now because it's Macho. Wait a minute. You're telling me that Macho Man Randy Savage, former WWF champion,
for a year,
main eventer, one half of the Mega Powers, is less dangerous than Zeus?
And that's kind of out of character for Jesse, too, because he's such a Macho fan forever. You know, Macho's been one of his guys forever. So for it was almost like there was a point of this match to lower our thoughts of Macho. It was really weird with the commentary and everything about it. I just, as a huge fan of Macho Man, one of my all-time favorites, that I forgot in this match, and I forgot after WrestleMania 5 with Hogan, the way he was sort of treated for about a year, until year and a half or so, until he got going with Warrior.
Yeah, and here's the thing that sort of makes me think, because I don't think the intention was to bury Randy Savage. What I think Vince was hoping was, okay, we're going to bring Zeus in. He's a big guy. We'll teach him how to work. He'll be a money-making heel for years. It'll be great, pal. They saw Zeus on camera once, and they knew it wasn't gonna fly. So everything that they had planned suddenly went up in smoke. So Savage hits the elbow. Now, I've got a question for both of you, and I'm genuinely interested in this. What's worse? Savage hitting one elbow and Hogan no-selling it? Or Savage hitting 5 elbows at WrestleMania 7 and Ultimate Warrior somehow kicking out?
Oh, how about the one when it's the Alliance to end Hulkamania? Have you seen this one in WCW?
Yes, I have,
when
and
they're
I would really rather not speak of it again.
They're on the same team, and Hogan is down and out in the middle of the ring, and Randy can't wake him up. So in order to try to wake him up, Randy knows every time I've given a flying elbow, he's no-sold it, and he just pops right up. So I'm going to go give him he does it to his own teammate, and he pops up. That's like one of the most bass-ackwards things I've ever seen in my life. It just bothered me. And Nick, I'm not someone who's as much of a Hogan hater overall. I love Hogan a lot, but there are things now when we watch back and we look and we could see what he's done, and I think we need to point him out. And this was one of those where it's like, you don't need to make Randy look this bad.
No, you don't.
You can make Zeus look strong without having to make Randy look like nothing.
Right. And now the rest of this after this was what it was. They tried to treat Hogan and Zeus like a dream match. We knew that wasn't going to fly. Hogan grabs the purse, and Zeus takes so long to get back to his feet that Earl Hebner, the referee in the ring, has to find things outside the ring to get distracted by so that Zeus will turn around so Hogan can whack him over the head with the purse. He slams Zeus, leg drop, good night, and then Hogan hits the atomic drop on Sherry. Look, it's 2020. There are intergender matches going on. I understand the need to be progressive, and that's fine. This is supposed to be real Americans, say your prayers, listen to your parents, do your homework, eat your vitamins, da-da-da, Hulk Hogan. And he's giving an atomic drop to Sherry Martel. Now, yes, Sherry was the heel, but this is supposed to be the kind of wrestling that, Darin, you were there at the time, 8 or 10-year-old kids could go to with their parents. This wasn't the Attitude Era yet. Hogan lifts Sherry up for the atomic drop, and there's a lot of legs showing there.
Presses all the way up, man.
And I imagine
there's a lot of cheek showing there, too.
And I imagine the people sitting in certain sections of the Meadowlands got a heck of a show that evening that they were not necessarily anticipating. And that's notwithstanding the fact that your white bread babyface probably shouldn't be hitting atomic drops on women. Just saying. Look, I love this show. The first hour and a half of this show.
It's great. It really is.
It might be the best first hour and a half of any pay-per-view of that era, late 80s, early 90s. That's how good this was. Everything before intermission, everything from the opening tag match through Rude Warrior, fantastic. Mm-hmm. That's an hour and a half. If you've got an hour and a half to burn, go watch that. The 6-man match after intermission, perfectly fine. Couple of decent spots with Garvin and the Hercules Valentine stuff. But, man, this main event, all in the name of, as Darin puts it, Hogan must pose. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. Have either of you ever seen the movie Face Off?
Yeah,
I have.
Nicky Cage and Travolta.
So in this match, is it possible that Zeus is wearing those like heavy metal boots that the prisoners are walking around in that they can barely get their
He can't even lift his feet, man. This guy can't lift his feet.
He can't even, the guy's like, I don't know if that's like part of his like shtick. Like, hey man, when you walk, make it like you have so much leg muscle that it's hard for you to lift your foot off the ground.
He was like, the early idea for the Undertaker. You know, like this was the Undertaker before he came in. He's like moving that slow. It was like deliberately this guy can't move. And when we talk about, you know, Hogan or Warrior maybe not being a great worker or Brutus or someone, I mean, you get a look at someone like Zeus, and you have a whole new respect for guys like Brutus and Hogan and Warrior.
Yeah. No, it's true. And to answer Andrew's question about which no-sell bothered me more. So this one did. And the answer, I mean, I'm sure you figured that because it's Hogan. But there's actually a legitimate reason to it. So the Warrior no-sell was not necessarily a no-sell. It was a kick-out. And I know he hit the elbow like 17 times. But that was the retirement match. Savage was going away for a while. He was coming back as a babyface later. So you didn't have anything going on with him right after it. So that one really doesn't bother me as much as others. This one bothers me because the guy is your mega heel in the company, and he's going to stay that way for a while. And this isn't even a kick out. This is the guy hits the elbow, and it's like somebody just dropped a bucket of water on Hogan's face. I don't know who came up with that spot. That was annoying. The end of the match is putrid. The purse shot to the face, and then this monstrosity of a man, Zeus, who is seemingly impervious to all pain, takes one body slam, and it's like he got shot. Like, body slammed, and he's dead. Like, not, like, motionless from the body slam, dead. Hogan hits the leg drop, 1, 2, 3, and the second the 3 count hits, Zeus is rolling himself out of the ring. So the guy went from being dead and pinned to 3 count, rolling myself out of the way. I mean, it's just awful. Whatever they were thinking that they were going to get out of this, you know, maybe they got pay-per-view buys out of it and it sold merchandise before, but my God, was this not the example of something not living up to the hype?
Yeah, because the build wasn't bad. I mean, I honestly, for as much as we talked about it, like I remember the Saturday Night Main Event spots were good. Before he got in the ring, he came off as a scary, imposing, new kind of heel for Hogan, new challenger. When we saw the guy can't cut a promo, he can't say a word, he can't sell, he can't even move himself. Like on offense, he doesn't even really look very imposing. And it's a bummer. And it's one of those things that we'll laugh at because they did come back and have another pay-per-view with this guy later on. The No Holds Barred pay-per-view later in the year where you could buy the movie on pay-per-view and you got the match before. And I believe that match was Brutus and Hogan versus DiBiase and Zeus, I believe. And they had an entire card that you can go and check out. But I mean, there were rumors that they had ideas of it being Hogan versus Zeus at WrestleMania 6. I'm sure immediately once this guy got in the ring, they knew that they could never. Could you imagine Hogan trying to go 15 minutes in a singles match with that guy? I mean, dear Lord, no way. So again, another one of those shows where sort of felt like SummerSlam 94 to me in that there's some good spots throughout. And I think this show overall was better than that one. It's just when you have one or two like downer things at the end that aren't that great, it really feels like the show isn't quite as good. But I liked it. I did. I mean, the tag match to open, the other tag, the 6-man, the Rude Warrior, really, really solid. I didn't have any issues with those, but 3 or 4 other things that seemed like they maybe didn't need to be on a big pay-per-view type card. But, this is still the beginning of them in the pay-per-view era. They're still sort of figuring things out here. This was only the second ever SummerSlam, so they hadn't been, producing 5 and 6 and 10 pay-per-view events a year like they would come to do. So, Andrew, all in all, I think a pretty solid show. I'm glad you picked this one. I'm glad we got to go back and watch it. It's the SummerSlam season. I always like going back around this time and watching a lot of the old SummerSlams, and there were a few matches that I forgot how good they were.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff here, and you get guys who maybe weren't necessarily at the peaks of their powers, but you could see there was star potential there. Obviously, Brett and Shawn being prominent there, Warrior and Rude for the IC title. That's a tremendous match. So much fun, not the least of which because of the Jesse the Body Ventura rant. And if you want to hate watch something, you get a main event that, if that's not one of the better hate watching examples in the history of wrestling, it's darn close. This was a fun rewatch, all things considered. It's a cool pay-per-view. If you want to sit down and watch it from start to finish, it's 2.5 hours on the network. As we've mentioned before intermission, it's 1 hour and 30, and that's a really quick hour 30 that goes by because there's some really good stuff in that hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree. We had another pay-per-view. I think WrestleMania 8 was a pay-per-view that we said a lot of similar stuff about with the first.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, I agree.
Being really good
because it ends with a stupid Hogan schmozzy main event. You know what I mean? Like it's the same type of thing. Yeah,
exactly. But no, it's a really enjoyable show. If you're a Warrior guy, you get one of his better matches. If you're a Bret Hart guy, you get a great tag match to start. There's a lot of cool stuff in between. It's very enjoyable. It's fun. There's nothing too lousy with the exception of Zeus and the last match. But, sometimes after you have a good show and you watch back, it's kind of fun to hate watch it. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I think this was the second show that I went to because I was at the SummerSlam the year before also, which, of course, was the one where Elizabeth took her skirt off. Talking about people going nuts in 1988.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you what, from 88 to 92, you had a really good stretch of SummerSlams. You had some, 88 was a good show. 89 was a darn good show. 90 was a good show. 91 and 92 are probably in my top 5 SummerSlams of all time.
91 was one of the first ones that we did. I think that was your first pick or one of them, DZ, that we talked about. And, and then even after that, we just did 94, which wasn't bad. 93 and 95 are not good, but then you take those two out of the equation. 97 is fine. 98's fine. 99's fine. You get into the 2000s. 2002 is really good. There have been a really good, list of SummerSlams, and it feels like some years it's almost more steady than WrestleMania sometimes. We've had WrestleManias that miss, but for the most part, I think there's almost like there's less pressure with the SummerSlam. They can maybe do some feuds that the fans are more into than maybe Vince is into, because he feels like it's not quite as big or the number one. So yeah, I agree with you. It's always one of my most favorite times rewatching the SummerSlam events. I love them.
And on that point, and I think it's something that I realized a while ago, and it speaks to what you just said, especially now. But even sometimes then, a lot of times SummerSlam becomes a second act of WrestleMania because the feuds kind of get brought into the summer. And I almost feel like after having worked together maybe for 4 or 5 months and maybe done live shows, during that period of time, and I really genuinely believe that you actually end up getting better matches at the SummerSlam between the same guys than you do at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and
I think the guys get.
Yeah. We didn't have, which I just kind of thought about right now. So 88, 89, at least the first 2 years, we don't even have a title match. 91, we don't even have a title match. Three of the first 4 years, the main events are not even the belt's not even defended. But they're still good shows, even with the Hogan tag matches that aren't the best thing on the show, but the Warrior one we thought was a little bit better than we remembered with Slaughter, and the Mega Powers one is a lot of fun too with Jesse in there as the referee. So yeah, before I interrupt you, DZ, it's just they do a really good job with the SummerSlams overall. And, watching them back and going through them one at a time, we've started to really notice that.
Yeah, no, we have, and I'm certainly looking forward